highly placed sources in defense circles that suggest that there has been a clash between Indian and Chinese People's Liberation Army soldiers at Yangtze in Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh on December 9th. This is what is coming out. Viewers, this is happening obviously for the first time in this sort of capacity after the 15th of June 2020, when there were clashes in Galwan in eastern Ladakh. And you will remember, viewers, that in those clashes 20 Indian soldiers were killed and there were several casualties on the Chinese side. Many different agencies have told Times Now earlier that in Galwan the Chinese suffered more casualties than the Indian side took. But here, viewers, we are being told that there have been injuries sustained, that is in Arunachal, that there have been injuries sustained on both sides. We can't quite tell you exactly how many soldiers were present, but there are some indications that there might have been several hundreds. Let's go across to Padmaja Joshi, who joins me from the newsroom for more on this. First things first, Padmaja, where is this clash taken place? What is the news that we are getting as to nature of this clash? How did this clash happen? And are there any casualties or injuries?
Yes, Rahul, there are in fact injuries that have taken place on both sides. So here is what I can tell you from sources within the army, that this was a regular patrol that takes place, and it is done by troops on both sides. So regular patrol was being carried out by both sides. However, at some point the LAC, the PLA soldiers, came in an area which India claims as its own. This, remember, by the way, is the general area of Tawang. Tawang is the sector. We're not going to name the specific place where this altercation has taken place. Subsequently, the Indian Army soldiers challenged those of the PLA, said this is our land. Then there was a bit of jostling, both pushed each other. Subsequently, immediately there was a de-escalation. After that, a flag meeting between commanders of both sides took place. Now, here are a couple of things that I can confirm. One is that injuries have taken place on both sides. Two, that the injuries are not very serious in nature. And three, that there were no sharp weapons that were used. Remember, in Galwan, there were some very serious injuries that were incurred because of these improvised weapons, sort of clubs with barbed wire, that were used by the PLA soldiers. Yeah. In the present case, I am being told that no such sharp weapons were employed, and of course there is an understanding that no actual shots will be fired, so no weapons were used. Are the 4 points that I can confirm right now. Back to you.
Well, Padmaja, just about a few days back, on the sidelines of the G20 summit, the Prime Minister did meet or at least exchange pleasantries with President Xi of China. There wasn't any protracted conversation, but we are being told that there has been an apprehension that the situation along the LAC that might be stable is also unpredictable. In fact, the army chief had used those specific terms, number one. And number two, of course, the foreign minister, even while speaking to Times Now, has routinely emphasized that this particular relationship with China is at a low at this moment in time.
Rahul, the standard operating principle, if one can call it that, is check but verify. So while disengagement has taken place, like you said, General Pandey said right at the outset that while disengagement is taking place, things still remain very fluid as far as the LAC is concerned. Now, when we're taking a look at this map and we're looking at the general area of Tawang, what has caught many people by surprise is the fact that in eastern Ladakh, of course, 2020, we had that face-off, we had an altercation. There is constantly worry about how China is ramping up its infrastructure there. But what many people do not mention, or what they fail to notice, is that India also is systematically building up its infrastructure on our side of the LAC. So while that is being done in eastern Ladakh, which remains the more unsettled, as it were, sector of the LAC, for this clash to have taken place in Arunachal is also what has made a lot of people very surprised. But see this in the context of what has happened in the recent past. The fact that there has been a growing unrest within China because of COVID curbs that have been put in place. Second, that India just 3 weeks ago had put up its first greenfield airport that was inaugurated in Arunachal. Third, that in the last 3 years we have built an amazing number of kilometers of border roads, especially in the eastern sector. And finally, that a lot of this infrastructure is being built in this general area of Tawang in Arunachal. So all of these factors could be a reason, Rahul, that China could be restive. Back
now, the LAC, viewers, often flares up because there are several flashpoints disputed in sensitive areas, at least 23 from what we are told. And most of the LAC is unresolved, 3,488 kilometer long LAC. Obviously, witnesses contending claims on territory and aggressive patrolling and face-offs. It's not the first time that this is happening. Remember, viewers, this is a regular and routine affair. There are also incursions. Padmaja, so very quickly, here you're saying that there are differing claims, perceptions really, on what constitutes Indian land, or what constitutes in fact the LAC, or what constitutes Chinese land, and there have been no incursions that were at least committed on the 9th, and no one is in any way ingressed and remained on the Indian side. Is that what you're confirming?
Absolutely, not at all. In fact, there is no question of anyone actually continuing to stay on Indian land. It was, it was a flashpoint. They stepped over in territory that we claim as our own, which is why immediately at that point, they were challenged. In the words of army sources that we've spoken to, they were resolutely challenged, because of which this altercation took place. And subsequently, the flag meeting that was held, immediately steps were taken to ensure that status quo prevails and that no such further clash take place. Of the injuries that we are getting to know, there are no serious injuries, there are no life-threatening injuries, there is no blunt force trauma, there are no shots fired, and there are definitely no casualties. And as far as anyone encroaching on Indian land at present, that also has been completely discounted by the army sources, Rahul.
So just let me come back to you and circle back to you on some of these specifics. How many soldiers were in this clash on either side, or at least from the Chinese side, if you have any information to that effect? And the soldiers on the Indian side, Indian Army soldiers that are injured, where are they right now? Are they at the base hospital here in Delhi, or are they still in the hospitals in the eastern sector? Any information?
Well, there, a usual patrolling party, there were about 6 injuries that are being reported right now. I want to quickly take across our viewers to an open source intelligence map that in fact we have sourced here. And this is the area here, Rahul, that is being reported as the territory. Now this, remember, is all of Arunachal Pradesh. This here is Bhutan. This here is Tawang. And right here is where the reported skirmish and the face-off has taken place on the 9th of December 2022. So far, what we are being told, what Srinjoy Chaudhary is reporting rather, is that there are about 3 soldiers who have been injured on the Indian side. We're also being told that as far as the Chinese, the PLA soldiers are concerned, they have far more injuries on their side. About 6 to 7 injuries are being reported on their side. But this here, if you take a look again, this right here is the area. This is Tawang. Like I said, it's the general sector Tawang, but it's closer here, right here at the LAC, where that skirmish took place. Now, like you've been also reiterating, Rahul, all of this area, the entire border that India shares with China, right from Jammu and Kashmir, extending all the way up to Arunachal Pradesh, is nowhere clearly marked out in terms of a fence, unlike the LOC or any kind of marker. So the patrolling that takes place is largely on perception, and which is why here there was perhaps a difference in perception. Some experts also saying that this could be deliberate on the part of the Chinese. It was an attempted misadventure, but it was rebuffed very strongly and resolutely on the 9th, leading to the clash and injuries. Back to you.
Well, viewers, just very quickly to give you an overview, the entire LAC is divided into the western sector, which would be Ladakh, the middle, which is the Himachal and Uttarakhand area, and of course Sikkim and eastern sectors, which also includes Arunachal Pradesh. And the area that Padmaja is pointing to is in a junction where we also have the Bhutanese border. So it's obviously an area which is a triangulation, 3 territories, and that is really where this has happened. Now, Padmaja, let's jog your memory back a little bit. Tawang has seen clashes earlier too, hasn't it?
Well, not really clashes per se, Rahul, but there have been episodes in the past, especially of civilians crossing over. There was one, if I'm not mistaken, last year or at the beginning of this year, where a civilian had gone missing. 2 boys had gone missing because they said that they had gone hunting and they were returned about 3-4 days after they went missing. There was quite a bit of panic, but they said that they were, they had gone hunting, they had crossed the LAC and they had gone over to China's side, and they were returned in a meeting between troops of both sides. But yes, largely it has been in the northern sector where we've seen more aggressive activity on the part of the Chinese, where they are building bridge, where they are trying to carry out aggressive patrols onto Indian territory. But in Tawang, this is not something that one heard of. However, of late, there were a number of pictures that were also emerging in Tawang of China trying to ramp up, the kind of infrastructure activity or the building activity that they are carrying out on their side. However, like we have also been reiterating here, India in the recent past has more than doubled the kind of road construction that it has carried out, especially in the Arunachal region. And between 2014 and 2019, this went up to 1.5 kilometers per day, because 44,000 crore rupees were allocated just for building roads in Arunachal, realizing how important this is when it comes to the LAC. Back to you.
Okay, stay on with us. I just want to open this up, viewers, and bring in Maruf Raza and General G.D. Bakshi. Gentlemen, don't need any introductions, really. Maruf, your insight, what do you think has happened here? Where do we go from here?
See, Rahul, as far as the Chinese claims are concerned, on what I insist on calling the boundary line and not the border, because the border is something that is formalized. Both in the LAC, there are boundary claims by them and counter claims by us. And then in the McMahon line, which is what has happened right now between the Bhutan and junction between Bhutan, McMahon line, Arunachal, and that line runs all the way right to the tri-junction, which is the Myanmar-China-India boundary. Now, Chinese have a history of intruding and coming in and trying to force their way in, and when they manage to push you off, then they claim that they've always been there. The second thing is, these disputes will continue because the Chinese have in the past looked at the possibility, and this matter died many years ago, actually 59-60, but then again, when the Galwan incident happened, the Chinese threw up again the 1960 proposal, which was basically a swap proposal that we accept your presence in Arunachal, and this was part of the arrangements that came between China and India in the 2 prime ministerial visits of 1993 and 1996, when they talked of peace and tranquility, that Chinese will not disturb populated areas by India, and India will gradually go around to accepting the Chinese claim lines around eastern Ladakh. Anyway, that fell through because of a variety of reasons. The bottom line being, India has decided to build its infrastructure all along the boundary from Ladakh right up to Arunachal. And this is something that irks the Chinese. If you remember, the Doklam standoff also happened in and around the Bhutan-India area, which is a bit more east of what has happened right now. Sorry, a bit more west of what has happened right now, because that is near the north of the Siliguri corridor. This area is the other side of Bhutan where the clashes are taking place, because Chinese have historically laid claim on Tawang, saying it is part of southern Tibet and it is a monastery which is holy to the Tibetan belief, and therefore Tibet is part of China, so they say. So therefore this belongs to China. Now in 1950s, there was a very aggressive movement carried out by the governor of Assam under a gentleman called Major Bob Khatin, military cross, who went with a patrol and occupied Tawang, and thereafter Tawang has remained with India. Sadly for the Chinese, they took over our positions in Tawang, which our troops, due to confusing orders in 62, were asked to hold on, then abandon, then hold on again. So in the confusion, Chinese came in up to Tawang, which could have otherwise been very well defended. But after that, lesson learned, and this is part of the findings of the Henderson Brooks report, that we will not abandon Tawang, whatever be the case. And therefore, this is a sticking point with the Chinese, and we will see more of it. Whatever the claims by the MEA, the talks will finally lead to tranquility, and we will be back to status quo ante. It is not going to happen. The Chinese are more and more going to bother us, and our firm presence there is something that China has not been able to digest, and especially the drubbing they got at
Okay, more inputs coming in. Just hold your thoughts, and I want to go across to Srinjoy Chaudhary. Srinjoy, three things. We are being told that the Chinese had come heavily prepared with at least 300 soldiers. Can you elaborate on the numbers, perhaps on both sides? Number one. Number two, why has there been no official statement put out by the government? And number three, Parliament is in session. How is it that this news is breaking outside of Parliament and not inside Parliament, where perhaps the government should have taken India into confidence?
Yes, it's 3 days, Rahul, since crash took place. The government could have spoken about it earlier, but there was a Saturday and Sunday in between. Today, at least, the government could have spoken about it in the morning, but there was nothing in Parliament about what happened. Secondly, yes, the Chinese were well prepared. They started the stone pelting, which is why 3 Indian soldiers have been injured. They are from the Jackrif. One has a head injury. But what I'm hearing is all 3 are out of danger. There were minor injuries, I was told. One has a minor head injury, the other were injured, but all 3 are out of danger. Yes, there have been injuries on the Chinese side because the Indian side retaliated. It was all stone pelting. There was no bullet injuries of any kind. Also, after the flag meeting at the brigadier level, which was one of the brigadiers there held the meeting with his Chinese counterpart the next day. This was, I think, the brigadier of 190 Brigade. Things have got it sorted out, at least for now. What the Chinese are going to do tomorrow, we don't know. But at least after the flag meeting, what I'm hearing from very high level sources in the government, that things have got sorted out. And we will have to see what happens. Naturally, you never know with the Chinese, they can do something tomorrow. But the flag meeting at least has helped to cool down things. Of course, you cannot say the problem has been resolved, because the problem really started because of differing perceptions of where the line of actual control is. The Chinese said it is at one place, India said it's in another place, which is where the Chinese started the stone pelting. And they had lots of stones to pelt. So you could argue that yes, they were prepared for it. And after the stone pelting started from the Chinese side, India retaliated. But as I said, there have been 3 injuries, one with a head injury, 3 Jackrif soldiers, but all 3 are out of danger at this point.
Okay,
after
stay on with me.
And it has gone well, at least.
Okay, we're losing your signal, so stay on with me. You're dropping out. Let me just bring in General Bakshi. General Bakshi, a serious incident of this nature, we're finding out through, of course, sources in government, no comment officially, as Srinjoy Chaudhary has said, from the government as of now. Parliament not informed. This happened on the 9th of December, reportedly, of course. This is what sources have told us. Are you surprised at the level of perhaps discretion? And number 2, how should the government react, immediately and as the days unfold?
Look, Rahul, I think Maroof gave you a very comprehensive historical account of our border problems with China in this particular Arunachal sector. I'll just add one piece of history, right? There was General Sagat Singh, who was one of the heroes of the 71 war, he took over as GOC-17 div in Sikkim, right? There were these incessant clashes taking place, fist calves, boots, butts, stone pelting, etc., etc. He passed a very clear order. If anybody responds to the Chinese with boots, butts and stones, I will court-martial him. You have been issued by the government of India weapons and ammunition, and I expect you to use them in the defense of our territory. All right? And I'll court-martial the first guy who tries this, fist cuffs and kushti and bhangra and all that kind of a joke. The joke stopped, and then there was a fierce clash at Nathula in which, all the weapons that were possible, the Chinese opened up first, we retaliated strongly, and then we escalated to the use of mortars and artillery, and then we employed medium artillery guns, which hit the Chinese in Yatung. There were overall said to be 500 to 750 Chinese casualties. We had no problems for the next 30 years. You want to keep doing this tamasha, this kushti, this fist cuffs and this non-military conduct. Well, then you can keep having it for the next 30 years to come. What is the cost for China? What is the cost for China? Our external affairs minister made some very pertinent and cogent observations that things are not normal at the line of actual control at the border with China. They cannot be normal as long as these fist cuffs, they were taking place so far in Ladakh, now they have spread to China. They came prepared there at Galwan with a whole pile of pointed sharp stones, bat balls, baseballs fixed with barbed wire and, all that kind of a tamasha. Well, either we are fighting or we are not fighting. Either we are fighting to defend our territory. Well, then, you push it. You push the envelope and see. Then, unless somebody is serious, this tomfoolery will stop. This is exactly what I have seen happen with my own eyes when a tough commander came on the spot and gave clear-cut orders. Look, we are not fooling around with our territory. We are not playing football matches and kushti matches. We are not here. We are not paid to do kushti with the Chinese. Do the Taiwanese do kushti with the Chinese? Do the Americans do kushti with the Chinese? They find this non-professional conduct. But because the Chinese have imposed it on us, we have taken it down. We must follow the Chinese rule book. Why? For how long? And everything has been resolved. Everything is so peaceful, I don't know. I've never seen a more peaceful border. I'm sorry, as a soldier it hurts. Either we are soldiers or we are not soldiers. Right? Either we behave in a soldierly manner or we don't behave in a soldierly manner. And we continue with this tamasha month on month, year on year. And we have a few boys who have their heads split open. We split a few heads open on the other side. The Chinese, we say we've done about 30. The media says over 100 Chinese have been killed. Chinese say 5, then they call those people and celebrate in their parliament. I think this kind of a joke has gone on for far too long. Either you are serious about your territory or you are not.
You're serious about your territory or you're not.
As a veteran soldier, I feel belittled. I feel ashamed.
So, General, let me ask you, what do you make of the location where the clash took place? Why did the Chinese decide, if what Srinjoy has told us that they perhaps planned this, they came with a sack full or maybe more than a few sackfuls of stones and they ambushed our troops, etc. Why did they pick this particular tri-junction where the Bhutanese border and of course the Indian border as well as the Chinese, I wouldn't call it border, I'm supposing because Maruf will say that this is not a border, but it's a boundary line, okay, where all these three boundary lines sort of meet. General.
Look, Rahul, as far as the Chinese are concerned, they claim the whole of Arunachal Pradesh. In its entirety, they don't just claim this, border tri-junction. And every time your minister, even if your prime minister goes to Arunachal, they object. they object seriously. If there is any of our citizens from Arunachal in any delegation, they refuse to accept that delegation into China. I don't think they could be clearer. Now we have built an army of specialists whose job it is to dig out the minutiae of, this has this significance, vis-a-vis that it has this significance. Well, I mean, as a soldier, I would say arrant nonsense. If you're serious about this is the line I defend, you cross this line again and again and again. Now you will pay a price.
You will pay a price.
The day you make them pay the price, you will find these tamashas reducing dramatically in frequency and the gaps between each.
Okay, so what's changed?
Because then it is serious.
Okay, they are not serious. Okay, fair enough. General Sagat Singh's example was invoked by General Bakshi, Maruf Raza. Why did we discontinue with this sort of very honorable tradition, or at least very valorous tradition, as General Bakshi has said, existed?
Well, Rahul, a couple of points, and I'm going to say things which is going to irk sensitivities, particularly amongst those who think the ruling party has got it all right with China. The first thing is that we seem to be, in a way, going back to Nehru's policies on China, which is, show the white flag and be relatively willing to talk and get round to a solution. Yes, it has been argued by many historians that failure of diplomacy leads to conflict. After conflict, we go back to diplomacy. But have the diplomats been able to deliver any results in the 24 special representative meetings that they've had with the Chinese, other than eating a bit of chow mein and doing sightseeing in Beijing and whatever else? The fact of the matter is you have to deal with an aggressive enemy from a position of strength. It is not just General Sagat Singh, who I am a great admirer of, and I have talked about it in some detail in my book on China, but also General Sundarji's operations around Sumdorongchu again put them in a bit of shock, and that is what led to the Chinese inviting Rajiv Gandhi for talks, and what we now talk about Rajiv Gandhi's great visit to China. But it came out of your military posturing. It didn't come out because suddenly they realized that India needs to be befriended. Thirdly, we must also understand that every time we've taken a tough stand with the Chinese, they have gone into hibernation for 1 or 2 decades or even more. But now what is happening is that the Chinese leadership is under pressure. They want to show that they have been making gains somewhere in the territories, because the territory of Arunachal is something that is the old Maoist dictum the Chinese are saddled with. The Tibet is the palm of your hand, and the 5 fingers are Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan and Arunachal. So they will keep laying claims, and we have to let it be known that next time we're not going to push you, we'll bloody well shoot you off. And you want to shoot, we are willing to die. Are you willing to die? Is something I've argued in the last chapter of my book, that the Indian soldier is willing to die. The Chinese soldier is from a family of 1 child per family. They're not willing to die, whatever the diktat of the Communist Party be. So we have hardened soldiers, we have battlefield experience, we have not called it upon ourselves, but if pushed into it, this is a message you have to pay as a power with aspirations. You can't be pushed around. Did Vietnam get pushed around? Deng Xiaoping tried to teach the Vietnamese a lesson in 1979, pardon me, and the Chinese learned many lessons from the Vietnamese. They're 1/10 our size. What is wrong with us, except for the fact that we are saddled with the baggage of policies in South Bloc, which are to me now redundant. You have to rewrite the rule book with the Chinese. People will say Maruf Raza is pushing for conflict. Listen, all nuclear weapon states have a window for strategic military operations without using nuclear weapons. Remember Kargil? Remember what happened in Garwan? So don't fear the Chinese unnecessarily. Chinese also will fear you if you make them fear them. And finally, as General Bakshi rightly brought out, that Sagat Singh's messaging was very correct, but also General Bakshi has argued in one of his books, which I reviewed, the revolving door strategy, which is if they move in somewhere, you move in another part of the boundary line, and say, we will vacate that if you vacate this. You can't just stand there totally. Every guy who's played any sport on the fields will know best form of defense is offense. So you cannot be passive anymore, and you can say that, listen, cut out this nonsense of throwing sticks and stones at us. We fought with sticks and stones in 1962 when ammunition ran out. But we are not in that same predicament anymore, because 1962 and 2022 are two different eras, and we will give it to them as good as we can get, perhaps even harder. Now, if that message goes down and we stop our passive apologist approach that we are trying to talk them out of it, nothing happens in China without the diktat of the Communist Party. Those of us who study China know that. So this hasn't happened because some maverick brigade commander or division commander has decided to teach India a lesson. He's got a message from his theater command, which is the Chinese Southwestern Command, and they've got messaging from Beijing that, listen, start unsettling India because they're getting too close to the Americans, and before we cannot break their self-confidence, destroy their self-confidence.
Okay, there have been statements. That's a very important statement. General, I'm just going to come out to you. Srinjoy Chaudhary, any clarity on when we can expect an official response from the Indian government or the Defense Ministry or even the army via spokespeople, etc., on what really transpired?
Well, we know what transpired, but officially the army, the Defense Ministry and the government has not as yet said anything. Well, you would expect this to come up in Parliament tomorrow. Most certainly it will be brought up, if nothing else, by the opposition. Then surely the government will have to reply to it. Surely there will have to be a statement by the government of India, either by the External Affairs Minister or by the Defense Minister, on what has happened. You would expect that with Parliament in session. Now that it's out in the open, you could imagine that the government would have said this today. They could have taken the initiative and come out this morning and said, look, this has happened. 3 of our soldiers have been injured in the stone pelting. Some Chinese soldiers have also sustained minor injuries. There has been a meeting at the border between brigadiers and equivalent, and things have got sorted out for now. That could have easily been said by the government. It didn't, and the information did leak out later in the day. You would expect the government to actually clarify the situation tomorrow. There is no harm in doing it. It does a lot of good if you actually stand up and clarify the situation and say, well, this is the situation, this is what has happened, and this is what we plan to do.
Also, of course, General Bakshi, we would all as Indians want to know a little bit more about the bravery of our soldiers and how they disperse these cowardly Chinese land grabbers.
Hello.
Yes, General Saab. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rahul, very luckily the boys involved in this clash are I'm told, from my regiment, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. I have served 37 years with these boys. They are the salt of the earth. They are the best mountain troopers that you can find. They are the descendants of General Zorawar Singh, who went about 740 kilometers inside Tibet, and that was in 1841, right? These are salt of the earth boys, and man to man they will give the Chinese 10 times as good as they get, right? But I feel terrible for the boys. Why are their hands and feet tied by an agreement, which says that no firearms would be used? I mean, then we might as well put the Seema Suraksha Bal, or we might as well put the women's police up there.
No, not that the women's police will also, of course, do a very, I'm sure even the women's police will give the Chinese a good bashing. Let me tell you that also. General Saab, just give me 30 seconds. The PRO, Tezpur, has put out a statement, at least that's what's been forwarded to me. This is the relations to the Tawang sector incident, December 12, 2022, Monday, which is today. Viewers, in certain areas along the LAC in the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh, there are areas of differing perception wherein both sides patrol the areas up to their claim lines. This has been the trend since 2006. On 9 December 2022, PLA troops contacted the LAC in Tawang sector, which was contested by own troops in a firm and resolute manner. Quote unquote, firm and resolute manner. This face-off led to minor injuries to few personnel from both sides. Both sides immediately disengaged from the area. As a follow-up to the incident, own commander in the area held a flag meeting with his counterpart to discuss the issue in accordance with structured mechanisms to restore peace and tranquility. Maruf, can you very quickly decode this statement?
Rahul, see, the first thing is that my understanding, and General Bakshi has more experience than me, but I've also served as an infantryman, and our troops never make the first move unless so ordered. So if the first moves were made by our troops, then senior commanders will have to be held responsible for upsetting the peace and tranquility. If not, then, and that is more likely a situation that it was brought upon them. And when it is brought upon them, the message is very clear right across the Indian Army that Galwan has taught us that we can give it as good as we get and perhaps more. So the second thing was a peace and tranquility. We are saddled with the baggage of this agreement on peace and tranquility. General Bakshi has been talking about this, and I am also no great admirer of that, because everything has its time. Everything has a sort of, after which it becomes irrelevant. So this agreement was brought into place between two sets of arrangements in 1993 and 1996, where peace and tranquility was agreed, and a lot of acronyms are used in those agreements. Also, the fact is that at that point of time, it was seen even by India that we were at a reasonable advantage by going along with this peace and tranquility thing, because we needed to build up our presence there and build up our resources. Today, we don't have to abide by the letter and spirit of the peace and tranquility agreement, because the MEA has itself said again and again that if Chinese don't adhere to the promises and agreements that were made between them and us, why is it incumbent upon us to continue to do that? So the fact of the matter is that the Chinese need to be told that sit down, and if we can force them to, which I doubt if we can do it, if we can force them to, that let us move forward. Do you know, Rahul, that the Chinese have never really accepted our maps which indicate our positions both on the LAC in Ladakh and the McMahon line, which came into being, as some of us know, in 1914, and it kind of lost a lot of its punch because it was announced at a time when the world drifted into World War I. But the McMahon line very clearly demarcates our boundaries in Arunachal. Yes. The only problem is Colonel Francis McMahon drew the line with a very thick felt pen on a quarter-inch map. General Bakshi will bear me out on this. That thick felt pen on either side of the felt pen line could be 1.5 kilometers. So which is your position and which is their position could be a great distance between that if you just go by the lay of the ground where the line has been marked on. Okay. And again, as Padmaja rightly brought out, the line has not been demarcated with pickets and posts and barbed wiring. So therefore, hill ranges, mountain ranges are all such, it can lead to a lot of confusion between which is my territory and your territory. Quite frankly, I think I will say this in all honesty, that many of our soldiers and commanders really don't know which red line is ours and which ridge line is theirs. There is still confusion on that. So we should get on to the business of marking out the lines if we can. You will not get anything with the Chinese unless you are willing to give something. Now that is where you have to get realistic. If you think you have the political clout to enforce an agreement which will save lives and save harassment to troops and save the kind of distraction that a growing India can do without, then get on with it and instruct that an agreement should be formulated in the least possible frictional manner with the most possible results for both sides. So that is what this roundabout statement, which is delightfully ambiguous, that comes out from spokesperson, because nobody wants to build the cat.
That's true. Let me very quickly, General Sir, I'm just coming out to pay attention to some of these reactions. Political parties, viewers jumping into the fray now. at least here in India. Dr. Ajay Kumar coming in and saying, गलवान अरुणाचल प्रदेश में भारत और चीनी सैनिकों के बीच झड़प, G20 अध्यक्ष चुप. That is the president of the G20 is silent, which is an obvious reference to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Viewers, the Shiv Sena saying this is an uncalled for and unfortunate escalation provoked by PLA leading to injuries on both sides, wishing our brave men in uniform a speedy recovery. Surprised by government is not officially releasing their statement, issuing a condemnation rather than putting out news via sources. Of course, now viewers, we have a statement from the Tezpur PRO. We also have other reactions coming in. Asaduddin Owaisi, another Indian politician, of course, putting out a statement. Reports coming in from Arunachal Pradesh are worrying and alarming. A major clash took place between Indian and Chinese soldiers, and the government has kept the country in the dark for days. Why was Parliament not informed when it is in session? That's the point, General Saab, I was making with you. Why is Parliament in the dark? Why is India in the dark? At the very least, we need to know how bravely our soldiers have actually rebutted these Chinese interlopers. We also, of course, are getting differing numbers. I think Sinjoy said that between 3 or 6 soldiers on the Indian side might have been injured. Other reports seem to be putting the number at higher. So we don't really know what's happening. Very quickly, Sinjoy and General Saab. First, Srinjoy, quick updates on the casualties, if any, injuries, if any. Where are our soldiers being treated? Very quickly.
Well, they've been taken back to proper hospitals. Inside 3 injured soldiers, as I had mentioned. We know definitely of 3.
Okay.
So
are these hospitals, is it Guwahati or have they been moved here to Delhi?
No, they're not to move in the northeast,
okay,
and they are being treated in the northeast in hospitals.
Okay.
What we know is that there are 3 injuries that require this kind of treatment.
Right.
2 injuries plus a head injury.
Okay.
That perhaps is a more serious one, but what we know is all 3 are out of trouble.
So they're not in a critical state. Okay. General Saab, as we of course try to figure this out for ourselves through the sources, and one very extremely parsimonious statement that has been put out, it becomes very difficult to really understand the Indian reaction of what we are going to be doing next. Clearly, it's not the type of reaction that you want to see, General Saab.
I'm afraid absolutely not. I am very clear that the military fights like the military. The moment you blur the lines, the moment you give escape clauses, you confuse the hell out of your boys who are simple, straightforward guys. He's told to shoot to kill, he will do so. And he will give you results. But this, this wrestling matches, these boxing matches, I mean, these are escape clauses. These are unprofessional. The American army calls them unprofessional response.
China has had to cut a sorry figure in Taiwan. Nancy Pelosi wanted to come there. China threatened lava and brimstone. They ended up doing nothing. They had to eat crow.
Okay.
So what do? In their parliament, they call the soldiers who they say are the heroes of Galwan. Because this is low cost, you see. They can afford it. They can have many more tamashas like this to come in the year. Do we want to be part of a spectacle? How long? How long?
How long?
It's your border, period. And borders are defended.
Okay. Well, the government at least a few years back after Galwan exercised certain options. Dr. Ranganathan, repeated provocations from China. How do you react to the latest one?
Good evening, Rahul. First of all, I say whatever I say tonight as a layman, not as an expert, because you have esteemed experts in your panel already who have briefed everyone. Three things here. Number one, I am really relieved to hear from Sanjoy that there are three of our Jawans who suffered some injuries, have been treated, and they are fully on the road to recovery. That is a great relief. That has come as a great relief to everyone. Laymen as well as professional soldier alike. So I'm on that account, I'm very, very relieved, I must say. Number two, there is not much to say at this point of time as far as the political repercussions are concerned, except to say that I hope this time round, 2.5 years have gone past, a lot of water has gone under the bridge, and I hope the Congress and the opposition this time supports the government in this battle, because as far as I can see, there is a differing perception. The boundary has never been defined of the LAC as well as the McMahon line, unlike the LOC. So our claims are disputed as much as their claims are disputed. And if these transgressions occurred, they have occurred during the UPA as well. The UPA Secretary Sham Saran is on record saying that the China had usurped 640 square kilometers of eastern Ladakh. And all the commentators during the UPA time were saying that the Galwan is China's as well. So I just hope Mr. Jindal does not make a controversial anti-India remark or even at this stage anti-government, because this has got nothing to do with the government as of today. Thank you.
Okay, well, what we're hearing is now from more sources that Indian Army soldiers belong to the Sikh and the Jat regiments. So there's more detail coming now. Srinjoy is nodding his head ferociously from side to side, saying that that is not true. So Srinjoy, this is the real problem, isn't it? When the government itself is silent, we're going to be, of course, led by sources which will end up contradicting each other. This is mystifying. What are you hearing from your sources, Srinjoy, about, and I've asked you this question now twice, when is the government going to hold some sort of a briefing?
Well, I hope it is, because that would be the best way to do it in Parliament, either the Defence Minister or the External Affairs Minister. What I have heard, at least from my sources, and they have been fairly good ones, that these soldiers who were involved in the fighting were in the stone pelting were from the Raj Reef. Okay. From the Jack Reef. So Jack Reef were involved, not the Sikh regiment, not the Jat regiment, but Jack Reef. Maybe the Sikhs and the Jats got in later, but the initial altercation, initial stone pelting involved the Jack Reef people.
Okay.
Now, as I said, there are 3 injuries and all 3 are out of danger.
Okay.
One had a head injury.
Well, we don't have any confirmation apart from, as I told you, a statement that is very parsimonious on details that has been put out by the PRO of the army in the Tezpur district. So we don't have much more on this particular information. But look at General, the opposition already beginning to question the government on its lack of response, so to speak. We just heard from a civilian who's listening in to this broadcast, Dr. Ranganathan, saying that the opposition must this time at least speak to amplify the government's message and not to at any level backstab the government. How do you respond to this?
See, first of all, it deals with every one of us. Indian Army, they are our soldiers. So we would never accept such a form of aggression by the Chinese. However, there is one important point that we need to bear in mind. The Chinese crisis started deepening in the first week of December itself. And there is an old maxim that all colors agree in the dark. Generally, it is seen that states like China, suffering such form of deepening crisis, they resort to aggression to the neighborhood territories as the last measure. So there has to be some form of a preparedness by the government, a quick response, quick form of measures taken, so that this particular we should not be caught unprepared. I mean, we have to learn from the history. We don't have to put blames on each other. So let there be more of a, you can say, preparedness prior to any major form of a debacle that is to come. So let us stand in solidarity and united at all fronts.
Razak raising his hand. Yes, Maruf.
Rahul, 2 quick points. when people talk about troops from Jat Regiment, Sikh Regiment or Jackrif Regiment, you see, in a normal brigade that is deployed in an area, when we are hearing Chinese came in a few hundreds, the few hundreds would not come at a post or a picket only. They would be spread out in an area which could be challenging the lay of at least a battalion plus, could be up to a brigade. There are 3 battalions minimum that make up a brigade. And all infantry brigades of the Indian Army, which are deployed on the entire Sino-Indian border and on the Pakistan border, they are normally not made up of 3 units of the same regiment. Regiments are like tribes. So they could be people from Jammu Kashmir Rifle, they could be from Sikh Regiment, Jat Regiment, Gurkhas, Grenadiers, Kumaon, whatever else. They are all historical names that are carried from the areas where they are recruited. But having given all that, please remember, every infantry soldier of the Indian Army is salt of the earth. He is just been trained to do and die. He will fight as well as another guy next to him. Some of the myths that have been built up about the bravery of one community over the other are myths only.
Okay.
In reality, as far as the Indian Army is concerned, so the second point, and that's a brief point, that I don't think there is any ambiguity on the part of the Indian Army how to conduct itself on the boundary. If there is confusion, the confusion is in South Block. They have to clarify. I always say to people, when you want to understand the roots of a conflict, go back into history. And if you look at our history with China, all the confusion in 62 and even in 67, General Sagat did the smart thing. He just cut off his phone lines to Delhi. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, and he just told his troops, go hammer and tongs and destroy the buggers. And in 87, when Sundarji did what he did, it took the political establishment by surprise, and this General Sundarji did speak to me in a personal meeting long ago. So I would like to believe his words. So the bottom line is, Delhi has to clear up his mind. What are the benchmarks that Delhi is going to follow? Is it going to be the same baggage of the past that we'll keep saying that we are checking up the responses? Responses in today's era passed in lightning speed. If they don't get to the headquarters, there's something wrong with our communication, and we have to revisit that. They must be there. All SITREPs would be there. Every detail would be there. MO Directorate would be wide awake through the night, marking out every pin and needle on the map. Everything would be sorted out. Now the decision rests with the civilian leadership.
Well, viewers, what we are seeing are fists in action at the LAC in the Tawang sector just a few days after handshakes, viewers, in Indonesia. So there is this juxtaposition really of visuals, handshakes, pleasantries, meetings, etc., and fisticuffs at our border. This doesn't inspire confidence. And the tragedy is, and I want to bring in General Sahab, that the politics has begun. Let's just quickly play out the Congress reaction on this. Surjewala, who was of course spokesperson of the Congress, has reacted. I want to bring in General Bakshi right after that to give his 360 view on this entire issue one last final time. Let's play this out.
Firstly, let me commend the armed forces of India, who always bravely repulse every Chinese conspiracy to occupy our territory. But what is Prime Minister Modi and his government doing? Till date, for over 2 years, China is occupying 1,000 square kilometer territory of India in the Ladakh region. In the Depsang Plains, they have occupied illegally India's territory up to Y Junction. Daulat Beg Oldi, the most strategic airstrip, is now in the range of Chinese artillery fire.
Okay, General Saab, very quickly, how do you think now, at both the diplomatic as well as perhaps the military level, India should respond? We know that there has been a high-level flag meeting, but beyond that, what should we be doing? Diplomatically and militarily, if anything at all, maybe even economically. Yes.
Look, Rahul, as I see it, it is a spatial escalation. So far, these pinpricks were confined to Ladakh. We retaliated in Ladakh in kind, by a mirror imaged build up.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, may have cooled things off a bit there, do not resolve them. Now a fresh front is being opened. There is spatial escalation.
Yeah.
There is escalation in terms of widening the area of conflict. They have come in the same standard pattern with sackfuls of sharp pointed stones to sort of injure, wound, possibly try and kill some of our Jawans. What I am concerned about is, Rahul, and which is a big change from my time, I find routinely when such incidents happen, there is a 2 to 3 days blackout that takes place. I mean, I can't understand. Our communications are excellent. And
Yes, I can hear you. General Sam, I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you. You've just gone, your screen. Okay, well, the video's gone off. Well, viewers, I think what the general is trying to say, and I think what also Dr. Ranganathan was trying to say is that, look, number one, we must do what we have to do. I think Maruf also made that point, that we must take measures that are seen to be deterrents. Justice must be done, as they say, and must also be seen to be done. So the measures, yes, Dr. Ranganathan, yes, very quickly. Yeah.
No, as I was saying, that I am very relieved by my good friend Lokesh's very tempered response, and I think that I hope the Congress doesn't get swayed by the other regional opposition parties.
As long as, of course, the Congress doesn't add to the general atmosphere of trying to suggest that our response at the LOC has not been good enough, I think questions need to be asked of the government as to why we haven't in 3 days not had wind of this. This is something very, very important, viewers. In the past, the Congress seemed to suggest that the Indian Army wasn't up to the task and conceded territory. That they haven't done so far, and they've actually lauded the defense personnel for doing what they always do, viewers, which is to beat back our enemies. But the question will have to be asked of the political establishment today as to why there is silence. So let's hope, viewers, we hear a detailed statement tomorrow in Parliament, perhaps from the Defence Minister. I leave it at that. News are coming up. Stay with us. Don't go away.
हाल ही में हमने उबर का एक इवेंट अटेंड किया था, जहां पर हमें बातचीत करने का मौका मिला सूरज नायर से, जो कि है सेफ्टी ऑपरेशंस के हेड एट उबर इंडिया एज वेल एज साउथ एशिया। हमने पूछे उनसे कई सवाल, आइए देखते हैं इस वीडियो में।
I think I really can't comment on public transportation in general, but what I would definitely want to say is that we as a platform are trying to be as safe for women riders as possible. In fact, very recently we hit the milestone of training more than 100,000 drivers on the platform for gender sensitization. In fact, as the number stands right now, we have trained more than 130,000 drivers on the platform, especially on gender sensitization. So, I mean, we from time to time obviously work on such initiatives which are industry first, which make sure that women experience a safe ride on the platform. I think we definitely want to encourage more and more women drivers on the platform. In fact, in the US, we recently launched a product called Women Rider Preferred, wherein our women drivers will get the option to be paired only with women riders. And that's something which we believe is going to be very empowering for our women drivers to feel safe on the platform, especially if they're taking, let's say, nighttime trips, etc. So that's something which we are evaluating for our market, and which we would definitely want to see if we can launch it here for India. And yeah, we are partnering with multiple organizations to get more and more women drivers on the platform, and something which we constantly endeavor towards. Yeah, gender sensitization is not just about drivers being sensitized towards women riders, but it's also about sensitizing drivers against sensitizing our drivers for all genders. So that is something which we will definitely work towards and get done. It's a very interesting idea and something which we have ourselves discussed and deliberated quite a lot. I think the challenge here would be to have a service which is very reliable, because the last thing that you would want is someone trying to book a pink cab but then not having vehicles available, right? So that's going to be a challenge that we are going to solve. Again, it's not an easy challenge because the number of women drivers is on the platform really low, and in general also commercial women drivers, the numbers are fairly low. So it's going to be challenging for us to do that at this point, but what we are doing is that we are partnering with organizations, NGOs.
The show tonight, viewers.
Aam Aadmi Party announces that it will be contesting all 230 seats in Madhya Pradesh 2023 Assembly elections. Bombay High Court has granted bail to Maharashtra's former Home Minister Anil Deshmukh in a corruption case filed by the CBI, but then put the order on hold for 10 days as the CBI sought time to challenge it in the Supreme Court. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has chaired a meeting of senior leaders of Karnataka in the AICC offices for a discussion on upcoming assembly elections in the state.
Meta laid off 11,000 plus employees, Amazon 10,000, Twitter 3,700 plus, Snapchat 6,000. Guys, लिस्ट और भी लंबी है, और अगर एक हेडलाइन जो हर न्यूज़पेपर, हर न्यूज़ चैनल चला रहा है आजकल, that's about layoffs affecting the big tech industry. Big tech companies are in big trouble. एक टाइम था जब ये इंडस्ट्री फ्यूचर प्रूफ थी एंड जॉब सिक्योरिटी के लिए काफी जानी जाती थी, बट रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी के नाम पे भर भर के जॉब कट्स हो रहे हैं. सो क्या टेक का ड्रीम रन ओवर हो चुका है? What lies ahead? Let's find out in this video, and I'm Sumita Karir. बिग टेक का बिग रीसेट मोमेंट आ चुका है गाइस. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द बेसिक्स फर्स्ट. एक्सटेंट ऑफ लेऑफ्स की बात करें तो 2022 में मोर देन 1,37,492 वर्कर्स हैव बीन लेड ऑफ अक्रॉस 850 प्लस टेक कंपनीज. बट हाउ डिड बिग टेक गेट हियर? Well, number one, misplaced pandemic boom. Online businesses में boom हुआ after the COVID-19 pandemic, where everybody was stuck at home. सब घर पे बैठ के ऑर्डर कर रहे थे, नेटफ्लिक्स पे कंटेंट देख रहे थे और सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे ज्यादा टाइम स्पेंड कर रहे थे. तो नेचुरली बिजनेसेस ने वहां स्पेंड करना शुरू कर दिया जहां ग्रोथ दिखी. लाइक मेटा ओवरस्पेंट ऑन मेटावर्स, AR VR टेक्नोलॉजीज टू द ट्यून ऑफ, कुछ रिपोर्ट्स बोल रही हैं, अराउंड $36 बिलियन. एंड बाय द वे, मेटावर्स कोई 1-1.5 साल में तो सेटअप नहीं होने वाला है. सो ओवर ऑप्टिमिज्म दैट दिस डिजिटल बूम विल फॉरएवर स्टे. इसकी वजह से इन्वेस्टर्स भी पैसा डालते गए, हायरिंग्स और स्पेंड्स बढ़ते गए. और जैसे ही कोविड रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लिफ्ट हुए, तब आया स्टोरी में ट्विस्ट. नाउ ये डिमांड जो है डिजिटल इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए, डिजिटल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज के लिए, ये सस्टेन नहीं रही. बिकॉज ऑफिस जाना है तो कितना फेसबुक यूज करोगे, कितना नेटफ्लिक्स देखोगे. एंगेजमेंट इन सारे प्लेटफॉर्म से गिर गई एंड ग्रोथ सस्टेन नहीं हुई. जूम फॉर इंस्टेंस, द वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग कंपनी, उसके शेयर्स अभी 90% डाउन है. नंबर 2, दूसरा रीजन है ग्लोबल इन्फ्लेशन एंड मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक ट्रेंड्स. नाउ जब ग्रोथ गिर गई तो उसके बाद आया इन्वेस्टर्स का प्रेशर टू फिक्स वैल्यूएशंस. ऊपर से रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर ने इन्फ्लेशन, इंटरेस्ट रेट सबको बढ़ा दिया, व्हिच इज पुट प्रेशर ऑन द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी. डिपिंग रेवेन्यू. इसके बाद क्या हुआ? एडवर्टाइजर्स ने भी लेस स्पेंडिंग करना शुरू कर दिया और ओवरऑल रेवेन्यूज जो थे इन डिजिटल कंपनीज के, वो गिरने शुरू हो गए. फेसबुक का रेवेन्यू वाज डाउन 52% इन Q3 ऑफ दिस ईयर. गूगल टू रिपोर्टेड द स्लोएस्ट ग्रोथ इन 10 years. सो नाउ दीज कंपनीज आर टाइटनिंग देयर बेल्ट and, in their words, becoming more streamlined and hence slashing jobs. In fact, many companies like Meta, amongst others, are now reducing real estate and enabling desk sharing. Snapchat is letting go of its offices in San Francisco. So tightening the belt to save costs and hence firing more people. और जो US में होता है उसका असर पूरे वर्ल्ड में तो आता है, and that's why firings have also been seen in India.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It has been 907 days since Indian and Chinese troops came eyeball to eyeball in the Galwan region. 20 of our soldiers sacrificed their lives not before pushing the PLA of China troops back to the place they came from. India made it clear to China and the world that not even an inch of Indian land will be given. On December 9, Indian and Chinese troops once again came eyeball to eyeball and indulged in a clash along the line of actual control in the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh. PTI says that the face-off led to minor injuries to a few personnel from both sides. At least 6 soldiers on the Indian soil have been injured and are being treated in a hospital in Guwahati, and they are said to be out of danger. This comes after 30-second brief meeting of Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G20 summit in Bali. The opposition has already started to train their guns on the center. The Congress said that the Prime Minister must answer in the Parliament and is back to the Lal Aankh taunt. Listen in to the Congress party.
Firstly, let me commend the armed forces of India, who always bravely repulse every Chinese conspiracy to occupy our territory. But what is Prime Minister Modi and his government doing? Till date, for over 2 years, China is occupying 1,000 square kilometer territory of India in the Ladakh region. In the Depsang plains, they have occupied illegally India's territory up to Y Junction. Daulat Beg Oldie, the most strategic airstrip, is now in the range of Chinese artillery fire. Gogra Hot Springs, they continue to occupy our territory. Galwan, we know what all happened despite the valor of our soldiers. Now they are occupying area or attempting to occupy area in Tawang here, Arunachal Pradesh. And an unconfirmed report, which probably you do not know, is now saying that China has now occupied our territory in the Doklam area.
The Ministry of Defence in its statement clearly mentions that Indian troops faced Chinese troops in a firm and resolute manner. It states that both sides immediately disengaged from the area and that commanders held a flag meeting with the Chinese counterpart to restore peace and tranquility along the line of control. But that clearly is something that the opposition is not buying. And that brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. Testing Mazboot Bharat's patience, is that what China is doing? That's the question. And the debate, India-China clash, that's the hashtag. And the debate, ladies and gentlemen, coming up on the other side.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining me this evening, Karan Verma, author and political analyst, Maruf Raza, consulting editor of Times Now, Mr. Dhruv Katoch of the Indian Defence. He joins us from the India Foundation. Also joining me tonight is Tehseen Poonawala, He's our political analyst, supports the Congress party. Mr. Karthik Reddy of the TRS. Also joining me this evening, political analyst Dr. Suman Siraman. First up, let me go across to my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary, who joins me on the Newshour. Srinjoy, what is the latest? Were these clashes on the 9th of December, and there was a flag meeting that was held on the 10th of December. Why is this information only coming out now? And that's the opposition's question, because Parliament is on.
Yes, Parliament would have spoken about in Parliament today. Yesterday, of course, was a Sunday, and then Saturday before that. But what we are hearing is that this was building up. Apparently, there was a very minor version of this clash, a really minor version of this clash at Yangtze about 10-12 days ago. That's the first thing we are hearing. And also, what we are hearing is that as a measure of abundant caution, India has called back from leave officers who are posted in the area who are in sensitive positions. That is the second thing that we are hearing. People have been called back from leave. Third, what we are hearing is that usually there are troops on both sides. But as a result, because of this clash, there are more troops on both sides in these areas. And fourthly, what we are hearing is that, yes, there have been 3 injuries that we have spoken about. 1 head injury and 2 other injuries, but besides that, some really small injuries or minor injuries, there have been quite a few more. Naturally, that would be the case if they have been throwing stones at each other for a fairly long period of time. What we are also hearing, that the assessment on the Indian side is that the Chinese have suffered more injuries than we have. So that is really the position, Navika. The fact that, one, there was a very minor version of this, a very, very minor version of this at Yangtze about 10-12 days ago.
Well, thank you, Srinjoy. Let me get Maruf Raza, consulting editor of the Times now. Maruf Raza, while the perception of the line of actual control varies, and that's what the statement from the Defence Ministry says, that this perception does lead to a few skirmishes here and there, and it's been happening since 2006. Yet, do you think the latest exchange between the PLA and the Indian Army at the line of actual control in the Tawang sector should be a cause of any escalated worry, or do you think this is something that's part of the routine along the line of actual control?
Well, it's not part of the routine, because routine is something which probably happens every month. As we know that in this kind of a situation, this is the first real serious build-up since the Galwan incident. There have been minor skirmishes here and there, but nothing that serious. Now, we have to understand a few things, Navika. One, that the line of actual control is the line which divides India's claims and Chinese claims in eastern Ladakh. So they are on other side of it in Aksai Chin. We are on this side in the Ladakh Plateau and the areas around Leh. In the case of Arunachal, there is a McMahon line which has been defined quite clearly from 1914 onwards. And the Chinese have from time to time in the past expressed a willingness to agree on the McMahon line as Indian-China boundary in that part of southern Tibet, provided India accepts Chinese intrusions in Ladakh, which is Aksai Chin area. And there is a whole history to it. I won't waste much time. The bottom line is that when the chance was there for India to kind of settle the boundary dispute in a way that it won't have these kind of flare-ups, there are diplomats on our front who didn't think it was wise enough to suggest to the political leadership that we do that. So we are left with unsettled boundaries, particularly in Ladakh and in Arunachal. Now the Chinese claim the entire areas adjoining these boundary lines. So there is an old Maoist dictum which I don't think Xi Jinping right now is strong enough to dismiss, even if he wants good ties with India, which is doubtful, that Tibet is the palm of my hand, Mao had said, and the 5 fingers are Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, and Arunachal. This clash has taken place in the junction point between Bhutan and Arunachal's line of control boundary. And the Chinese are trying to show once again a demand for Tawang, which is a very serious place of importance for the Tibetans, who the Chinese insist must all go back to China-held Tibet. We obviously not going along with that, so that's a point of friction. And Tawang has been under our control except for a short period in the 1962 conflict, where confusion in orders led to troops withdrawing and coming back, and there was fighting. Strangely enough, the Chinese, whatever gains they made in 1962, they went back to their original position, fearing that the snows would block the mountain passes and their troops will be caught up in Indian territory and therefore butchered to death thereafter, because the entire Indian army was not allowed to fight. At this point of time, the Chinese follow a systematic presence, increase of presence by moving in troops, trying to show that they've been there forever. And there have been routine claims, counterclaims by various military movements and patrols. However, the Chinese have always wanted to show that it's not just in Ladakh they have claims, but also in Arunachal, because the peace and tranquility agreement, which came out of the prime ministerial visits of Rajiv Gandhi, followed by Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Narasimha Rao, etc., these agreements are basically, I believe, they've run out of steam. We need to go back to the drawing.
Absolutely, we need to go back to the drawing board. But Tehseen Poonawala, let's come to the political question and the question that has been raised by Mr. Randeep Surjewala. I want to ask you, of course, Parliament must be informed, but there is a time and place when these issues should be raised. Do you really think so, or do you think any time and every time is time for politics?
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for having me on the show. And at the onset, thank you to Major General Dhruv Katoch for the services you've rendered to our country. It's because of
why not
like
to Maruf? And he's also served in the
yes,
army.
Of course. And Maruf, it's because of people like you all. I would have come to Maruf. They're safe. And I want to take Maruf's point further on Tawang before to answer your question specifically. See, China has always had its designs on Tawang because it doesn't want the future Dalai Lama to be associated with the birthplace of the 6th Dalai Lama. That has been China's strategic policy. And we know, and you know, you covered this when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister and Arunachal Pradesh was declared a state. It was Operation Checkered Board under General Sundarji, and how China had to backtrack. So yes, after 62, China has had to backtrack. So first, again, a salute to our Indian army for standing up to China every single time. So this is a region that is strategically important for India, and China wants to take it. Coming to your political question, I do believe there is never a good time or a bad time to tell Parliament. What makes us different from China and what makes us so amazing is that we are a parliamentary democracy where everyone is accountable to Parliament, no matter how high he or she is. Therefore, Parliament must be told in its wisdom. If the Prime Minister or the Honourable Defence Minister don't want to tell Parliament right now, they can at least call a meeting of senior opposition leaders, have the Army Chief brief them or the CDS brief them. But briefing opposition is extremely important. It is something, it's a convention Prime Minister Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh ji, Rajiv ji has followed. During Operation Checkerboard, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, despite having the brute majority, did call Prime Minister Vajpayee and explained to him exactly what General Sundarji was doing, and that was prior to that was Operation Falcon. So it is a tradition India has held good, and Prime Minister Modi must inform Parliament. That is the only democratic way. That's what separates India from China.
Well, so let me get in Mr. Katoch, Major General Dhruv Katoch, and Major General Dhruv Katoch. You know, is the opposition jumping into this entire debate without even waiting for the time of the day that the Prime Minister actually calls for such a meeting? After all, when the Parliament is in session, you know, one would assume that the government would inform Parliament. But to raise the issue the minute the news sort of breaks on public platforms. Do you think is that the issue, is that the time for the opposition to raise the issue of the Paling not being informed without waiting for any time to lapse?
Thank you, Navika. Navika, very frankly, I cannot comment on either the government or the opposition. Politics will continue. But I would like to comment on this particular incident because I've had the privilege of commanding this division. I have walked this front. I know this area. So the first part of it is, that it is a very clearly defined area. When we look at the tri-junction, from there we have the Namka Chu running. We have the Chinese on the northern side of the Namka Chu at the Thagla Ridge, and we are on the southern side on our own ridge line. Right. So then we come further east. We have got right up to Bumla. There is absolutely no doubts as to what the ground situation is. At Bumla is a place where we have regular flag meetings. It is a place which has also become a tourist attraction. Now you go further east, and then you hit the point of Yangtze, and this was the post you see when General Sundarji, when the Chinese actually started intruding into our territory. That is the time when we had actually occupied this area in the 80s, right? And we continue to occupy it. It is a very difficult area. When I commanded the division, we didn't even have a road up to there. There was a track which we used to lug up our luggage and all that. Now things are better. Now, as far as this particular situation is concerned, what used to happen is, because we are occupying the ridge line, and when the Chinese would come to patrol, our patrols would go down. At some point, they would meet each other, and then both patrols would disengage. This has been going on for quite some time, as has already been mentioned. I think the difference which has come in now is that they attempted to build some sort of a sangar or a bunker or some barbed wire or something, and there the troops objected and told them no way, and it led to whatever it led to, fisticuffs, etc. People have been hurt on both sides, but the point is not how many of ours were injured and how many of theirs were injured. I think the larger point, and which is a cause of concern to me, is why have the Chinese done this at this time? I don't think it is a political decision taken at Beijing by Xi Jinping. In my view, this is a local decision by the military commander. For whatever reason he may have done it. But I think he has gone horribly wrong, because Tawang is the one place where I don't think either the Chinese or the Indians want any interference on each other's territory. Should it come to war, this is the place where the Chinese will face a very massive defeat. So this is not really a place where they would like to intrude or do anything. If at all, if they have to do these things, they will go further east, right up to the eastern corner of Arunachal, where our roads still have to go up to the LAC, but the Chinese have got their roads. When I commanded my division there, we used to always ask, the government at that time that, listen, we need our roads, but the roads didn't come up. Now, very frankly, the attempt to establish connectivity up to the line of actual control has only started post 2014. I'll be very honest about that. Before that, we didn't have that connectivity for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into the political reason why they didn't have it. But the point is, we didn't have it. From 2014, it has started, and now we are getting closer and closer, both as far as the Ladakh is concerned and Arunachal is concerned. This face-off, I think, is going to be a snub on the Chinese side, because what they attempted to build has been destroyed, and because we are holding the heights, anytime they attempt to build up a sangar or a structure again it will be destroyed. There is no way in which they can move up in time and space into that area and beat the Indian army, which is on the top, which will go down into that area and stop them. So when we are looking as to the time they will take to reach that area and the time we will take to reach that area, it will be approximately the same. If they try to build up, we won't permit it. So I'm very frankly, I'm surprised. Perhaps the Chinese thought that because of winter, the Indians have withdrawn, there will be nobody there and they can get away. But that is a very wrong assessment which they have made. And leaving aside the politics of it, it doesn't matter which political party is in power in the center. The Chinese will do what they have to do. It is the military's job, and I'm making it very certain. If I am the divisional commander there, it is my job to see that the area is safe. It is not anybody's job, neither the opposition nor the government. I am there. I'm the only person on the ground who is there. It is my troops who are there.
Well said.
We will ensure it is done.
Well said, Major General Dhruv Katoch. So my question to you, Sumant C. Raman, if it's the job of the military and if it is a situation which is now under control, do you think opposition, when it hypes this entire issue, is not just playing into the hands of the Chinese, the Chinese whispers that they want to create in the world about their own power, by escalating the pressure on the government here. It's a question.
Not at all. Not at all, Navika. I think the opposition is well within its right to ask for Parliament to be kept fully in confidence as to the situation on the ground. I think that's a basic that has been followed ever since independence. I can't think of any time when whichever the ruling party at the center, they have hid, or not given the information to the Parliament. Now, the second part is, I think where the opposition has a problem is with the actual situation on the ground, where multiple reports say that following the clashes in Galwan, there have been Chinese, movements and, buildings which have been put up on areas which were quote unquote disputed territory and so on. And yesterday or day before, there was a report which said that up to 1,000 square kilometers, if not more, which were once in play, are no longer in play because the Chinese have encroached on that. Now, we do not know the truth. And that the thing is, even Parliament, the opposition is not fully aware of what the situation is. This is not a political issue. This is not a BJP Congress issue. Every single politician in this country.
You say you don't have the details, and the details should be shared. Maruf Raza.
Every opposition parliamentarian and party person stands 200% with the government on this issue.
Absolutely. Well, Maruf Raza, do you think information about whether 1,000 kilometers has been taken over by the Chinese, etc., and all of these fears that the opposition has, are they justified? And should the government?
Not at all, Navika, because 1,000 kilometers is not 100 square yards. 1,000 kilometers is damn well 1,000 square kilometers. That is the kind of territory on which some of the island territories are countries. You can't have such a large chunk of land with the Chinese, with so many intruding elements from media to satellite pictures, etc., completely being put under the carpet. So I disagree with that. Yeah, maybe a odd bit here and an odd bit there. Are people confusing the area the Chinese are occupying in Aksai Chin and claiming they have suddenly occupied all that? They've been there from before parliamentary debates became the norm. They've been there actually from the early 1950s. That is another story, that it was not addressed and brought into the public domain till it came into public light in 57-58 when Panditji admitted that yes, they were there because of an ambush that took place and because of certain build-up of certain things. But generally, the approach in Delhi has been to kind of tone down what China is occupying, firstly. Secondly, please understand, much as I respect General Katoch, I disagree with 2 points that he made. One is that the Chinese military commanders don't operate at will. If whatever little I've read, and I've read a lot in China, that entire system in China are like Beijing is the octopus's head, and every arm of the octopus is controlled by Beijing and its diktats, whether foreign policy, financial policy, military policy, etc. And if there is a maverick commander who has done this on China's part, he will be very quickly removed because if it goes against Xi Jinping's policy. But the fact is, does it go against Xi Jinping's policy or not? I don't think it goes against Xi Jinping's policy because he is under pressure to show that China is becoming militarily more and more aggressive and important. It's not just on the Sino-Indian border. He's been having to lick his wounds on Taiwan. He's not being able to make headway in South China Sea. He's not making much headway in other territories around China's borders. The only place where they have slimily moved in is to do an agreement with the Bhutanese. And earlier we had stood up for the Bhutanese in the Doklam or the Dokala standoff, but now they've kind of
done some kind of a boundary arrangement with the Bhutanese. So the only country that China has boundary disagreements with is India. And they are going to try and muscle flex their way to see that China is rising. So what if it's not rising economically, it is rising militarily. I agree with General Katoch that the military will not allow them to intrude into our territories. But I also believe that the military in India operates given on the guidelines in terms of reference laid out by the political leadership, the CCS, the NSA's office, and every patrol that does the rounds on the Sino-Indian border is approved by the China Study Group, which is made up of military serving retired officers, made up of diplomats, made up of political experts, and everything is taken very cautiously that not to ruffle Chinese feathers. So I don't think the fault lies with us, but push to the wall, we will hit back. And this is something that China wants to limit our ability to stand up.
Absolutely. And Mr. Karthik Reddy, of course the opposition has a right to know, and of course the government has a duty to inform the parliament. Having said that, my question is only about the timing. I'm not contesting the fact that parliamentarians as well as people of India need to know the situation. But to make claims like 1,000 square kilometers have been taken over, number one, are you questioning the Indian military forces, as Major General Katoch and Maroof both have said that it is their job? Nobody actually from the political dispensation goes and guards the boundaries of the countries. It's always the military which does that. So if you say 1,000 square kilometers have been taken over, number one, are you putting a question mark on the way the Indian army is operating, number one? And number two, on such matters, there's one thing to issue a statement saying that Parliament must be informed, and there's completely another way in the manner in which both the Congress party and Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi of the AIMIM have raised this issue. My contention is only about the manner in which it has been raised.
At times like these, I believe all political lines should be blurred out. I can hear myself.
We'll correct that.
At times like these is when, as political party, we should tag together and stand behind our security forces and especially our nations. And Navika, we have to take this opportunity to salute our security forces and remember and remind ourselves the sacrifices at Galwan, Major Santosh Babu and his colleagues who spared their lives in protection for our country. We have to spare a thought for them and we have to keep in our thoughts and prayers. But everything said, Navika, your point to why there should be a line for the opposition to question and not to question, as I said, this is a juncture when we should all blur out political lines and we should stand behind our security forces, but it doesn't mean the country should be kept in dark. And if we are not sure if the Chinese incursion is for 1,000 square kilometers or more or less, as a citizen of this country, I believe I deserve to know some information, whether the Chinese incursion is strategic, or as one of your panelists today has mentioned, no, it was some maverick general or some general who was thinking too big for himself. Doesn't the parliament or the citizens of this country need to know that this strategic incursion of the Chinese, which we keep hearing for the last 8, 10, 12, 15 years, that 10 square kilometers the Chinese have come in now, 20 square kilometers the Chinese have come in. The parliament or the citizens of the country deserve to know what exactly is happening on the border. We are not on the border, as you said, the politicians are not fighting this battle. But as citizens, don't you think, Navika, that we need to know what exactly our Chinese are trying to pull and what is that our security forces are trying to do? We deserve to know when our soldiers laying their lives in protection for this country, and if not, we do not know if there is incursion. Did the Chinese occupy our land or did they not? Don't you think we deserve to know? I think this is where the difference is, Navika. We are not contradicting or we are not opposing
Navika, one of my good friends,
but we deserve to know what
and he told me that the thing that hurt him and the people there the most was when people start doubting whether we gave an inch to the Chinese or not.
And the opposition is guilty of this from the past 2 years. Just before you ran the show, Randeep Surjewala, we saw that bite where he said an unconfirmed report claims. And Mr. Sumansi Raman also said another unconfirmed report. For God's sake, the last thing we can do is bring these unconfirmed reports. Let's start trusting our armed forces and let's not come up with these unconfirmed reports which hurt the morale of our soldiers who very bravely have left the Chinese once again with a bloodied nose. Let's take pride in that and let's rally around them. The least we can do is stop spreading these unconfirmed reports. That is a great disservice the opposition has done time and again.
Fair point. Karthik Reddy, Sumansi Raman both want to come in. Karthik Reddy first. I'm coming to you, Dr. Sumansi Raman. Karthik Reddy.
Navika, see, here's my point. Here's my point. We raise a point here as a citizen here because there's a genuine concerns we have. We are not question, we'll never do. Our security forces have staked their lives in protection of this country. We respect their word and we respect their decision. But as leaders who run this country, when there is ever a doubt, I think it is on the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister to address the nation of this country via the Parliament or via press or somehow tell us what exactly is happening. We do not know.
Say the Chinese have occupied our land without having any confirmation, spreading rumors.
Sir, I did not say. I am telling you we do not know. I think the country deserves to know what exactly is happening on the border.
Do you criticize that? Do you criticize?
Sir, I did not say anything.
News coming in. The Congress party has decided to move a motion in Parliament. They want more details of these clashes at the line of actual control to be shared with the Parliament. Sumansi Raman, I'm coming to you, Tesi.
Yeah, one quick point. Now, nobody, the entire point that Karan Verma made, it is relevant because the government is not providing the information. Where do these unconfirmed reports and rumors come from? If there was authorized information coming from the military or the government, there would be no need for any unconfirmed report. Let me finish, sir. Let me finish, sir, please.
We are
please, sir, 1 minute.
These unconfirmed reports
one minute, sir. 1 minute, sir. 1 minute, 1 minute, sir. Sir, 1 minute.
1 minute, Karan.
Sir, 1 minute. No, sorry, sir. Sir, 1 minute. 1 minute. Let me, we have Mr. Maruf Raza, who is a very respected defense analyst on the show. He himself said they may have taken a odd bit here and an odd bit there, but it's not likely to be 1,000 square kilometers, which is quite possible. Nobody knows where this 1,000 square kilometer number came from. I have seen 60 square kilometer, one report said 300. Mr. Maruf Raza, let Mr. 1 second, sir. You have to understand that everyone is behind this, our government on this issue. The problem comes when information is not
fair point, but information is of utmost importance, and I take your point on that, Sumansi Raman, but I also want to tell our viewers tonight that the Sikh regiment and the Jat regiment have shown exemplary courage. They virtually surprised the 300 or so troops of the Chinese PLA, which came across, and they surprised them because maybe the Chinese soldiers felt that they would have a cakewalk and a walk around the park, but it wasn't really so. But they're seen motion moved, possibly a showdown coming up in Parliament. Does this actually play out to the script written in Beijing somewhere?
No, I don't think so. I don't want to use the word showdown. Parliament is a place where the country should be addressed. What the Honorable Prime Minister, I'm taking this medium because I know that the Honorable Prime Minister takes you and Times Now extremely seriously and he watches it, and Maruf is here and General Saab is here, Major General Kachot Saab. My suggestion is, why don't you call an all-party meeting with the presidents and the national parties and speak to them, say, okay, we will not speak in Parliament, but let's have an all-party meeting. Maruf ji is here and he will agree with me. Arunachal has been India's success story. In 80s, as Maruf ji said, that India decided that it will always defend Tawang. It was decided that the Hatungla reach is where Indians have the best chance to defend. So Operation Falcon was initiated after IB spent an entire season there to see how we can do it. And our soldiers were put on top at the heights, and that's how they occupy these heights where today we have an advantage. But every single time Prime Minister Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi occupied those places or did some positive moves, they kept the opposition in charge. So much so that in 86, when Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi declared Arunachal Pradesh as a state and Western powers declared another war, China had to backtrack. China backtracked. In 67, 68, China lost at Natula and Chola. It was again the Jat regiment.
Well,
they
it would have helped.
So you must
if you really want to, if you really want to go that far, then you must remember what Major General Katot said. Maybe some roads could have been built in the north.
He did occupy high spaces.
Which really started to be built seriously only after 2014. But this is not about the blame game of what Indira Gandhi did or Rajiv Gandhi did or what happened during Pandit Nehru's time. It's about today in the present. And the Congress planning to move a motion, adjournment motion led by Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the senior most opposition leader in Parliament, and let's see how the government responds to that. We leave it at that for the moment, but of course big story, and we'll continue to track this minute to minute with every detail from inside and from our sources. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on this big debate number 1. On the other side, ladies and gentlemen, the Modi juggernaut is unstoppable. After the landslide victory in Gujarat, the BJP has set its eyes on the 2023 polls, which is considered as the semi-final before 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Excuse me. Once united, the opposition now is in a state of disarray and finds a challenge to take on brand Modi. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar just yesterday said that there was no scope for a third front in 2024. Only a main front would take on the BJP and that the anti-BJP parties could win. Please note, could win. Jeet sakte hain. Theoretically possible. But the 2024 election with a huge majority if they come together on a single platform. Similarly, Akhilesh Yadav said that the opposition leaders were working on an alternative for the 2024 polls. Mamata Banerjee has already said that the opposition will come together and there will be a rerun of Khela Hobe. Listen in to Nitish Kumar and Akhilesh.
और हमने सब लोगों को यही सलाह दिया कि मिलजुल करके काम कीजिए। अधिकतर पार्टियों का एक साथ एकजुट हो जाएंगे और जब एकजुट हो जाएंगे तो 2024 में भारी बहुमत से विजयी होंगे, ये हम लोगों का है। और हमने लगभग बात कर लिया है। अब कुछ समय के बाद अधिक से अधिक पार्टियां एकजुट हो जाएंगी। अरे कह न रहा था कि थर्ड फ्रंट, तो हमने कहा थर्ड फ्रंट कहाँ है? अब अगला बार बनेगा वो मेन फ्रंट बनेगा।
देखिए, जो एक्सरसाइज लगातार चल रही है, कभी आपने बहुत दिनों से देखा होगा आदरणीय ममता जी, केसीआर साहब, मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार जी, लगातार ये प्रयास हो रहा है कि एक अल्टरनेट बने और इसलिए बनना चाहिए कि आज महंगाई चरम सीमा पर है, बेरोजगारी चरम सीमा पर है। बाबा साहब भीमराव अम्बेडकर जी ने जो सपना दिखाया था, जो अधिकार दिए थे, वो अधिकार धीरे धीरे छीने जा रहे हैं।
मैनपुरी की जीत 2024 में क्या संकेत देती है?
2024 में बड़ी जीत होने जा रही है समाजवादियों के उत्तर प्रदेश से।
You're watching the News Hour at 9, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me on the debate, Mr. Shehzad Poonawalla, national spokesperson of the BJP, Mr. Ratan Shah, the author, Tehseen Poonawalla continues to be with us, Karthik Reddy also continues to be with us from the TRS, Zeba Yasmin, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, and Riju Datta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress. First up to you, Shehzad Poonawalla. थोड़ा सा शांति भी नहीं हुआ, swearing in भी नहीं हुई, and they are busy lining up all opposition leaders to take on Narendra Modi. Someone is saying प्रधानमंत्री की हत्या कर देनी चाहिए. That's the Congress leader, former minister, and then there are people who come out and say old pension scheme should be revived. They didn't remember it when they were in power from 2004 to 14, but now what was discontinued in Vajpayee's time has become the magic pill for the Congress party. Shehzad?
देखिए, जनता से हारे तो कोई हत्या के सहारे और कोई महागठबंधन के सहारे। और सुनिए, ये मेन फ्रंट नहीं है, दिस इज नॉट मेन फ्रंट, आई कॉल इट स्ट्रेन्ड फ्रंट, स्टेन्ड फ्रंट, drained front and pained front. I call it drained and pained front because they've tried this experiment in 2018 also. सब हाथ पकड़ के खड़े हो गए थे कुमार स्वामी की swearing in के बाद। क्या हुआ? 2019 SP BSP got together, क्या हुआ उत्तर प्रदेश में? And this is, see, now elections and the people's mindset has changed. This is not Deve Gowda ji ka zamana or Kumar Gujral ji ka zamana. Today people want mission and vision, but only they can offer commission, division, television and obstruction. And therefore I ask them, today Congress is also sitting here, we have BRS is also sitting here, we have Nitish ji's party also sitting here, we have other parties also. Ask TMC, can they work with left? कैसे एक होंगे? कैन कांग्रेस वर्क विद आम आदमी पार्टी? कैसे एक होंगे? कैन एसपी वर्क विद बीएसपी? कैसे एक होंगे? तो ये केवल और केवल इनका एक ही एजेंडा है, मोदी विरोध में सब एक हो जाओ। ना नीति है, ना नेता है, ना नेतृत्व है, और इसीलिए दिस इज डेस्टिन्ड टू फेल एंड देयरफॉर दे आर डाउन टू अब्यूजिंग थ्रेट्स एंड टू ट्राइंग टू कॉबल अप दिस काइंड। और बाकी तो छोड़ दीजिए, ये कुर्नी में क्या हुआ? बिहार में सारे लोग एक हो गए, क्या हुआ उस बाईपोल बिहार में? Every bipole that has been fought by JDU after the breakup of the BJP-JDU alliance, they have lost.
Well, so let me ask you, तहसीन पूनावाला, वो पुराना गाना था, you've taken it too seriously. हम है राही प्यार के, हमसे कुछ ना बोलिए, जो भी प्यार से मिला हम उसी के हो लिए। भाई प्यार से तो आपको कोई मिल ही नहीं रहा, आप जहां जा रहे हैं आपको धक्के लग रहे हैं, लेकिन आपको हराना है। कोई कह रहा है हत्या से हरा देंगे, कोई कह रहा है ओपीएस वापस ले आओ। डू यू नो द स्टेट ऑफ फाइनेंसेस इन द स्टेट्स वेयर यू वांट टू ब्रिंग दिस ओपीएस? ऑलरेडी 80% of the revenue of the state goes into pension schemes and government payments. I want to ask you, you want to take that deeper into the red? And if that is such good politics, then why was the world-renowned economist, Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, former Prime Minister, why did he not discontinue that scheme that was stopped by Vajpayee? Why did he think that it was bad and let it stay in cold storage? Why are you bringing it back? Because bribing and reveries, is that the only way to stay in power? Apart from, of course, getting together with every political party available in India.
Two questions you asked, one specifically on the old pension scheme and second on the alliance. On the old pension scheme, the reason Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji very wisely did not go to it at that point of time was because unlike this government which has destroyed the economy, you yourself said everything is in the red, the so-called Modi magic puts everything in the red, you could give people decent returns. Today with inflation where it is, today with no returns, with regularly provident fund rates being reduced, our service sector, those who have retired, who served the country have nothing left. So you have to give them fixed returns. It is this government that is taking money out of the corpus and giving it to its friendly business investors. Therefore, there's nothing left in pension to be given. And you keep saying anti-Modi. There's no anti-Modi. Is Mr. Modi not in an alliance of NDA? Is there no Is there no NDA today?
No, the Hatya comment is being pro-Modi.
No performance delivery alliance. NDA. No performance delivery alliance.
No,
क्या perform करते? क्या deliver करते? बस चुनाव से चुनाव.
जो लोग हत्या बोलते मोदी की हत्या कर दो, वो pro-Modi हैं.
Absolutely, very wrong language should not be used. But I am asking you today, 2 weeks. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what action is being taken. What action have you taken at AIMS? I came to your show before the election. Because there's a sovereign attack on India. You never stood up to China there. Right now you've had an attack at Tawang. Now you've had an attack at Tawang. China has attacked.
You at least you sound more logical than the remaining.
No, one
second. Is the AIMS the reason why Pateria has threatened the Prime Minister's death?
May I ask you? I think Pateria is wrong. I'm answering.
Pateria is wrong. End of the matter. The rest is not
defending India's
Pateria is wrong. Don't need to speak over me. You can be patient. If Pateria is wrong,
he's absolutely wrong.
He's absolutely wrong. Then why has Rahul Gandhi, the preacher of love, प्यार की राजनीति, and who's on a mission, भारत जोड़ो, नफरत को छोड़ो, भारत जोड़ो, is this not nafrat against the Prime Minister?
Now I'll answer your question, but don't interrupt me.
Yes or no?
The language of the Prime Minister saying dangayo ko
so is it justified?
Well,
it's not. So then why action is not taken on the Prime Minister? No, I just have one question.
No, wait, let me get in. Let me get in.
Just answer that
1 minute. Let me get in.
Why? China's attacked our country.
1 minute. China's attacked our country.
Now you'll attack the Prime Minister, you'll attack the Indian Armed Forces. The armed forces, एक सेकंड, हमारी भारत की सेना सेना ने हड्डी तोड़ रिस्पॉन्स दिया है, हड्डी तोड़ दी उनकी, हड्डी तोड़ दी, तो फिर क्यों
One minute, let me get in Riju Datta ji. Riju Datta ji, খেলা তো হবে, খেলা হবে, কার সঙ্গে খেলা হবে? সিপিআইএম সঙ্গে হবে, কংগ্রেস সঙ্গে হবে?
Navika ji, in recent times we have seen the result of 3 major elections.
Yes.
So AAP won in Delhi, Congress won in Himachal, and Gujarat BJP won. So obviously it is not BJP that had a clean sweep. Number 1 point. So basically when these national spokespersons of BJP, they come and say, where is the opposition? Where is the opposition? The opposition is very well here. One has won the MCD, the other one has won Himachal Pradesh. Now in 2023 there are 5 major states that is going to polls where there will be a direct contest between Congress and the BJP. And I strongly believe the opposition should come together to defeat this anti-people BJP and Narendra Modi ji's entire election machinery. It is not a fight with directly the person Narendra Modi. No, he is the biggest face. He gets 5% vote share. We know all that. But it is the party that the people are against. And I believe one more thing, that if there are stalwart politicians in their local area like Mamta Di in Bengal, Stalin in Tamil Nadu, Kejriwal in Delhi and Punjab, Tejasvi ji, Nitish Kumar in Bihar, and if we win our own elections, then in 2024 BJP and Narendra Modi will lose and they will lose by
left in Kerala.
Yes, the left in Kerala, of course.
Let's not speak over each other. Left in Kerala, are you willing to have them as your friends in West Bengal?
Look, ma'am, let me be very clear. You as one of the most eminent journalists in this country, you know very well that state politics and national politics have completely different equations. And in terms of the national general elections coming in 2024, like I said, every party should fight their own battles, and if they find their own battles, it is possible.
One minute. All right, everybody should fight their own battle. 1 minute. Everybody should fight their own battles in their states and they should fight together nationally. But you did that. In 2019, didn't you do that, Kartik Reddy ji? All political parties came together. January 2019, they went to Bengal. 2018, they were all standing like this in Karnataka. They did all that.
BRS didn't do that, Navika.
Oh, so you are the star power that will lead them.
No, Navika, I have a very clear stand. Let me tell you this. I've been very consistent with my take. Clubbing all political parties to fight the BJP and Modi would not be the solution. They need to be a strategic, direct approach the country needs to pick up, an idea the country needs to pick up. Political parties clubbing together would be a disaster for the opposition and for the optics for this country. That would not be received well.
Okay.
And another thing, Navika.
So what's your formula? What's your formula?
There are certain media houses. There are certain. Yes, I'm coming there, Navika. There are certain media houses in this country who wants to portray the image that the BJP is winning everywhere. The BJP is everywhere. And that's not true. And what we have seen last week and what we have seen many elections before, there are more than half the states which the BJP doesn't rule. And what happened in Himachal and MCD is a clear inclination, a clear idea there is an apparent anti-BJP, anti-Modi vote. And to club political parties together, left, right and center would not be a solution enough. The country needs an idea. The country needs to pick up an idea, a political party needs to put up, and that's the solution. And I believe this country is smart enough, very smart enough to realize when the party gets
there is an idea that they should come together with, but it's not really all of them coming together.
5 seconds. We have heard 2 people come out and say कि BJP सब कुछ नहीं है, आम आदमी पार्टी 1 year, Congress 1 year. Yet Nitish ji saying everybody unite against BJP. This debate has started because Nitish ji said सब एक हो जाओ, गोलबंदी करो BJP के खिलाफ. हमने थोड़ी बोला कि गोलबंद हो जाओ BJP के खिलाफ.
And Kartik Reddy says there has to be another idea. This is not an idea that can work. So Ratan Sharda, ये तो balloon ऊपर जाने से पहले ही फट गया?
देखिए, इतने बार पहले ही कोई बलून चढ़ा ही नहीं था। इसमें जो गैस है ना, जरा वो लीकेज है उसमें, क्योंकि लोग बहुत है, सबकी अपनी अपनी गैस है शायद, और रिएक्शन हो जाता है, एक्शन नहीं होता। Starting from the beginning, Nitish Kumar left Modi precisely because he was given a poor idea that he can replace Modi ji. Now his language that I saw was very disappointing. He seemed to be frustrated that people are not coming together. Now what will they come together for? Do they have a positive agenda? No. Their only agenda is Modi, anti-Modi. None of them in last 8 years has ever given one positive idea or one constructive idea or presented something alternative. They have not. Fiscal prudence has been thrown to air. OROP was brought in by Modi ji despite financial burden, because that was a gift that Indira Congress gave to Fauji for creation of Bangladesh. That had to be calculated. But knowing that this will ruin all the state governments, various kind of schemes are floated. So that is going to be non-sequitur. Now coming more serious issue, what is this particular fight about? Rahul Gandhi is on a Padayatra, 3,000 kilometer Padayatra, walking every day for what? He is keeping walking to bring Mamta in job. He is doing this to bring Arvind Kejriwal on the top. No sir, he will not allow any other party to lead the opposition. That is why he is doing all this. All due credit to him. What happens is different issue. Is Mamta ready to accommodate anybody else? Congress? No, they will not. Is KCR has become BRSY because he believes he has a national role. If everybody has a national role, then who is going to lead? If that is not clear, if there is no positive agenda, who is going to vote? Our supporter in a debate during election he said, we are like East India Company. East India Company was in a corner, finally ruled India for 200 years. So here is the opposition which believes that they are the aggressors who are going to rule the poor Indian subjects for 200 years. This entire idea of being together is such a horrible thing that they don't know what they are fighting for. And for every issue, for example,
and it's not like they haven't done it before. And Ziba Yasmin, my question to you, I'm sorry I'm completely out of time, but my short question to you is, you've been with the Congress in the past at the state level, you've been with the Bahujan Samajwadi Party in the past, you've been with many alliance partners in the past, and you've tried this formula against Modi. What gives you the confidence that in 2024 there will be success? Because Nitish Kumar, when he says it, has already suffered a Mahagathbandhan versus BJP loss, and he says hum sab saath aa jaye to hara sakte hain. So theoretically everything is possible, but practically is it a good idea?
Navika ji, first of all, I would like to ask, where is it written that if you fail once, you should not try again? Since childhood, we have been taught that keep trying and work on your strategies. Opposition at a national level has a good percentage of vote, more than BJP, more than 50%. So what is wrong in giving it a thought? I don't understand. Every Kshetriya Dal, if performs well in their state, what is wrong in coming together then? Nobody is fighting on other symbol. Every party has to perform good in their state, and then we have to unite.
Fair point.
This is what we have to do.
Fair point, but then
that we'll decide.
But then the questions people of India will ask are the same that they asked in 2019, and that question was, here we know that it is Modi who will be the Prime Minister. The other side, we don't know who. And that then becomes the biggest challenge for the opposition. But however, who can take away from the absolute philosophy of try again? Maybe someday you will succeed. Of course, it is possible. But does it look probable? Is a question that the opposition will think and have to calculate for. And Mr. Karthik Reddy says that it's not about a patchwork of opposition parties, but an idea that will bring everybody together. Well, watch this space. The idea is being worked upon. What that idea will be, well, we'll keep bringing it to you as soon as the opposition knows it and we have an inkling that there is an idea that they seem to be working on. Thank you very much to all my panelists, and thank you viewers for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Good night, be safe.
watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned.
हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टाइम शायद अंकुर तनेजा और मैं मौजूद हूँ टोयोटा की नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस के अनवेल इवेंट पर। तो टोयोटा की फाइनली ये हाई क्रॉस देखने को मिल रही है जो कि हाइब्रिड अवतार में टोयोटा लेकर आई है। इनोवा का ही हाइब्रिड अवतार कह सकते हैं। बहुत से बदलाव लेकिन क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले इस नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस में देखने को मिलते हैं। तो क्या है वो चेंजेस इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिजाइन, इन टर्म्स ऑफ फीचर्स एंड ऑल्सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंजन ऑप्शंस, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूँ इस वीडियो में। सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन बात करें तो सबसे पहले यहाँ पे एक नया बड़ा ग्रिल जो क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहा है इस हाई क्रॉस में। तो ये एक नया फेस यहाँ पर इसमें दिया गया है एंड क्रोम का सराउंडिंग्स थ्रू आउट यहाँ देखने को मिल रहा है इस साइड में। एंड जो हेडलैम्प्स हैं वो LED हैं और पहले से थोड़े स्लीक भी यहाँ देखने को मिल रहे हैं। एंड ड्यूल फंक्शन इसमें DRL और इंडिकेटर यहाँ सेम लाइट में LED लाइट में देखने को मिलेगा। एंड नीचे देखेंगे तो ब्लैक और वाइट का कॉम्बिनेशन देखने को मिल रहा है। सेंसर्स थ्रू आउट हैं। 360 डिग्री कैमरा इसमें दिया गया है, फ्रंट में आप इसको देख सकते हैं। साइड प्रोफाइल की बात करें तो व्हील्स हैं इसमें जो 18 इंच के दिए गए हैं एंड क्लैडिंग थ्रू आउट यहाँ पे इसमें देखने को मिल रही है। इसके अलावा जो डायमेंशंस हैं वो भी क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले बदली हुई इसकी देखने को मिलती हैं। ये चौड़ाई में ज़्यादा है, लंबाई में क्रिस्टा ज़्यादा है, व्हील बेस इसका इनोवा क्रिस्टा से ज़्यादा देखने को मिलता है। तो ऑब्वियसली अंदर स्पेस भी क्रिस्टा से ज़्यादा इस नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस में देखने को मिलने वाला है। एंड टर्न इंडिकेटर्स यहाँ इसके साइड में इसमें इंटीग्रेटेड है एंड हाइब्रिड की बड़ी सी बैजिंग यहाँ दी गई है। 360 डिग्री कैमरा है तो यहाँ पर भी इसके मिरर के नीचे और भी हमसे कैमरा देखने को मिल रहा है। जो डोर हैंडल्स हैं वो बॉडी कलर और क्रोम की कॉम्बिनेशन के साथ यहाँ देखने को मिल रहे हैं। एंड रूफ रेल यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को नहीं मिल रही, हालांकि इसमें पैनोरामिक सनरूफ दी गई है। अंदर से मैं दिखाऊंगा। एंड यहाँ पे पीछे जाते इसकी दो क्रीजेस दिखेंगी जो इसकी टेल लाइट से जुड़ती हैं एंड रैप अराउंड LED टेल लाइट्स यहाँ पर इस इनोवा की नई हाई क्रॉस में देखने को मिल रही हैं। ZX वेरिएंट खड़ा है हाइब्रिड वाला जो कि इसका टॉप वेरिएंट है। एक ऑप्शनल का भी इसमें वेरिएंट टोयोटा ऑफर कर रही है इस इनोवा हाई क्रॉस में। सेंसर्स थ्रू आउट यहाँ देखने को मिल रहे हैं एंड ब्लैक एलिमेंट का इस्तेमाल इसके बम्पर में यहाँ भी करा गया है। एंड पियानो ब्लैक एलिमेंट इसके इस स्पॉइलर में इधर देखने को मिल रहा है जो कि बॉडी कलर और ब्लैक के कॉम्बिनेशन में यहाँ पे इसमें दिया गया है। एक नया एडिशनल फीचर जो इसमें अब मिल रहा है। सो नाउ दिस न्यू इनोवा हाई क्रॉस कम्स विद एन इलेक्ट्रिक टेल गेट जो कि सेगमेंट फर्स्ट फीचर यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिलता है। एंड कुछ इस तरह से तीनों रो अगर आप हैं तो कुछ इतना स्पेस, एग्जैक्ट नंबर टोयोटा ने अभी बताया नहीं है बट डिसेंट स्पेस है, बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं कहूँगा बट यहाँ पे कुछ इस तरह स्पेस देखने को मिलता है। थोड़ा बहुत सामान यहाँ पे भी रख सकते हैं। ये कुछ मामला है इसकी बूट स्पेस और इस इलेक्ट्रिक टेल गेट का। सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ डायमेंशंस यस बदली है पहले से क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले। डायमेंशंस में ये ज़्यादा वाइडर है, ज़्यादा लॉन्गर है, व्हील बेस ज़्यादा है, हाइट ऑलमोस्ट दोनों की सेम है बट कुछ ये इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन यहाँ पर बदलाव देखने को मिलते हैं। नाउ लेट्स गो इनसाइड एंड फीचर्स का मामला कैसा है, लेट्स गो एंड चेक दैट आउट। नाउ लेट्स सिट इनसाइड और अंदर फीचर्स का मामला क्या है यहाँ पे देखते हैं। पावर्ड सीट्स यहाँ देखने को मिल रही हैं एंड आई थिंक यहाँ पे भी इसमें नहीं, इसमें मैनुअल दिया गया है लेफ्ट साइड में। एंड गियर बॉक्स यहाँ पे अब इसका डैशबोर्ड वाले कंसोल में देखने को मिल रहा है जो पहले यहाँ पे यानी पहले क्या अभी भी क्रिस्टा में जो देखने को मिलता है सेंटर में। इसके अलावा ये चार्जिंग पॉइंट्स दिए गए, USB-C USB-A चार्जिंग पॉइंट है एंड यहाँ पे
You're watching the News Hour at 9.
Aam Aadmi Party announces that it will be contesting all 230 seats in Madhya Pradesh 2023 assembly elections. Bombay High Court has granted bail to Maharashtra's former Home Minister Anil Deshmukh in a corruption case filed by the CBI, but then put the order on hold for 10 days as the CBI sought time to challenge it in the Supreme Court. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has chaired a meeting of senior leaders of Karnataka in the AICC offices for a discussion on upcoming assembly elections in the state.
You were watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned.
हाल ही में हमने उबर का एक इवेंट अटेंड किया था जहां पर हमें बातचीत करने का मौका मिला सूरज नायर से, जो कि है सेफ्टी ऑपरेशंस के हेड एट उबर इंडिया एज वेल एज साउथ एशिया। हमने पूछे उनसे कई सवाल, आइए देखते हैं इस वीडियो में।
I think I really can't comment on public transportation in general, but what I would definitely want to say is that we as a platform are trying to be as safe for women riders as possible. In fact, very recently, we hit the milestone of training more than 100,000 drivers on the platform for gender sensitization. In fact, as the number stands right now, we have trained more than 130,000 drivers on the platform, especially on gender sensitization. So, I mean, we from time to time obviously work on such initiatives which are industry first, which make sure that
Good evening and welcome. You're watching the Newshour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. 2.5 years after the Galwan clashes, China tried another misadventure along the LAC. On the 9th of December, troops of China and India came face to face at the LAC in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh. Here is what the army has confirmed in a formal statement. They said on the 9th of December 2022, PLA troops contacted the LAC in Tawang sector, which was contested by our troops in a firm and resolute manner. This face-off led to minor injuries to few personnel from both sides. Both sides immediately disengaged from the area. As a follow-up of the incident, brigade commanders in the area from both sides held a flag meeting to discuss the issue in accordance with structured mechanisms to restore peace and tranquility. What else do we know about what happened on the 9th of December? What we know so far is that 350 PLA soldiers started pelting stones at Indian Army troops in a place close to the Arunachal-Sikkim-China tri-junction. Indian troops retaliated, injuring at least 30 Chinese. In the process, 6 Indian soldiers have sustained injuries of a non-life-threatening nature. They are currently undergoing treatment in Guwahati. Now, the issue has naturally gained political currency as well. The Congress will now be moving an adjournment motion tomorrow in the Lok Sabha. The party's leaders have also demanded that the Prime Minister make a statement on the issue, and they also brought up the familiar Lal Aankh taunt, questioning India's silence in the face of Chinese aggression.
When will Prime Minister show red eyes to China? Well, will Prime Minister give a befitting reply to China? They can't brazenly occupy our territory. We demand, both inside and outside the Parliament, Prime Minister should come to Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha and reply to the country and to the opposition about the exact position of brazen and illegal occupation of India's territory at different points by the Chinese PLA.
Now, even as this inevitable politics has started, the real questions facing India are: what has prompted China's aggression in Arunachal? Has a rattle China increased its saber rattling? And why is China now getting aggressive in addition to Ladakh along the LAC in the eastern sector in Arunachal as well?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
All right, joining us on the debate, we have Captain Alok Bansal, Director at the India Foundation, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, Leader of the Congress, Political Analyst, Anirban Banerjee. But my first question is to Major General Sanjay Meston. General Meston, if you can first help our viewers understand what is the difference between Tawang and Ladakh along the LAC.
Good evening.
Good evening,
as
sir.
regards the difference is concerned, the terrain spells out. By and large, eastern Ladakh or the entire Ladakh area is fairly plain. That is the Excitation Plains. However, most of the dominating heights we are occupying in the area of eastern Ladakh, and the mountains are, most of them are fairly barren. Now, coming on to the Arunachal Pradesh, at the lower ridges and even fairly high ridges, up to about 13,000 feet, you have the tree line, and thereafter again the mountains become barren. And here also the Chinese on the other side are located on the Tibetan plateau. it gives them a major advantage, the entire plateau area, because for them their troops are already acclimatized. They are coming from a height of about 18,000 to 17,000 feet in the Tibet Autonomous Region. So there they have a terrain advantage, and thereafter if they come onto the heights which we are occupying, thereafter it becomes little advantageous to them to roll down, and therefore for us to sustain on these heights with the infrastructure whatever we have at times becomes little difficult. But nevertheless our troop deployment, whether it is Eastern Ladakh, whether it is Sikkim, whether it is Arunachal Pradesh, we have more deployment of troop density, much more than what the Chinese have. Our bunkers are prepared 100% all along the LAC. So therefore we have lot of advantage. So the terrain advantage what they have, we have overcome it by our military posturing and strong deterrence in terms of deployment, in terms of military preparedness.
Okay.
So these are the major differences. But basic issue in that area is terrain is more barren, and of course in these areas also, both the areas in these heights, Tawang 14,000, 15,000, 16,000 feet, the troops have to be acclimatized, and in this case most of the places we have to do second stage or the third stage acclimatization for troops to be deployed, and once they are acclimatized, then we remove the differential even in terms of acclimatization. Then the troops, whether at the Chinese side and whether it is the Indian side, we are at par in terms of acclimatization. So these are the major differences, and further whatever questions you ask, we will address all the
All
issues.
right. So basically, even though topographically India is at a disadvantage, we are continuously, Captain Alok Bansal, ramping up our infrastructure, especially when it is compared to maybe the 1960s, the 1980s. Would you say that at least now in the year 2022, we are pretty much on an even keel when it comes to China, even though they are sitting here in a plateau and we have an uphill task when we want to go uphill to places like say Bumla or Yangtze, etc.?
See, from 62, for decades, we had a very lopsided policy where we didn't want to build roads because we thought Chinese would come down. Though I am yet to figure out which are the roads which allows only one-way movement. It is only after 80s that we started occupying these territories, and of course, it is only after 2014 that we are talking of Trans-Arunachal Highway, which is going to be a very big thing, which is going to move from east to west.
Yeah.
Because in Arunachal, what happens is that after the Kameng sector, which is Tawang area, if you go to the rest of Arunachal, the valleys are north-south. So going from one valley to another is a very, very difficult proposition. But now if you are going to have an east-west road, that would allow Indian Army to move troops from one location to another. That would actually be much more beneficial. On the Tibetan side, it's relatively a flat ground, so it is much easier for Chinese to move around. It is also high altitude. When we say there are advantages, yes, Chinese have an advantages, they have a flat, but there is a big disadvantage. Their aircraft taking off from Tibet, their carrying capacity is much lower as compared to our aircraft which are taking over from planes, because as you move high, so there are issues. And as far as Tawang is concerned and Ladakh is concerned, one major difference is that in Tawang area we have a clear-cut McMahon line which was delineated in 1914, which we insist is the border, though of course Chinese don't accept it, but there is a very, very clear delineation.
Okay.
And it is, they have a different perception of line of control.
Okay, so ultimately it all boils down to perception, but everyone is still wondering what exactly happened on the 9th of December. While everyone is already fulminating, demanding answers, demanding statements, demanding that we show red eyes to China, what actually happened? Breaking it down for you is my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary. We can now break to you that actually on the 9th of December there were two separate clashes that took place on the same day. There was heavy stone pelting which was done by the PLA troops. What was the sequence of events? Over to you, Srinjoy.
Yes, thank you. First of all, this is something that brewing for about 10 days before that, and the Indian side clearly saw that the Chinese were building up, which is why the Indian side was prepared. Now, as you rightly said, there were two clashes. at the same time on the same day, that is the 9th. And the first clash that has been talked about that involved Jacriff was the bigger clash, because there were 200 Chinese troops facing the Jacriff boys. The second clash was a little distance away, also in the Yangtze sector. There were about 70 to 80 Chinese soldiers. Now, this clash was naturally less intense. There were fewer casualties, fewer injuries.
Yes.
And as a result, has not been talked about so much. But there was definitely a second clash, is what we are hearing.
Okay.
Less intense clash. What we are also hearing is that along in that area, there are more Chinese troops and more Indian troops. India has moved troops there just to be as a part, abundant caution. Also, all those officers who hold sensitive positions and were on leave have been called back, because this is a situation where anything can happen. Though things have cooled down, a brigadier held talks on the 10th, but officers who hold sensitive positions in those areas have been requested to end their leave and come back and join work.
All right. So everyone is on high alert, leaves cancelled, officers back, any Chinese aggression has been repulsed, and not to mention the series of moves before that, Qamar Zaman Chaudhary. Thank you very much, Enjoy, for bringing us that big piece of news. Would you say that that's lal aankh enough? Nobody is sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for the Chinese to come over and walk up to Kanyakumari.
Well, Padmaja, there is a difference between the military action and the government's action politically. There is a hell and hell difference. No Indian will ever doubt the capabilities and the resolve of our brave soldiers and the Indian army in dealing with the Chinese. We have been dealing with them since long, and till today also, yesterday also, we are dealing with them. But nobody is doubting the Indian army and our brave soldiers who have given their lives. At least 20 of them lost their lives. But even after that, our Prime Minister lied on a all-party meeting, says that nobody entered, there was no incursion. Even External Affairs Minister had to issue a statement. The Foreign Affairs, External Affairs Ministry had to give a statement. What actually happened in Galwan?
So when you say that, when will India show lal aankh? I'm always very curious about this. What exactly do you want? Do you want war?
You are warmongering. You are warmongering.
I'm not warmongering at all. I am genuinely asking.
When the gentleman, from India Foundation says, when the gentleman from India Foundation states that every development that happened in Arunachal Pradesh happened after 2014, there is an agenda out there. It's very clear and simple.
Okay, so here
India
is what government documents,
even
if we leave Captain Alok Bansal out, here is what government documents say. Vis-a-vis under the UPA, according to data from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, under the UPA, that's between 2009 and 2014, 0.6 kilometers of national highways were built along the LAC. As opposed to during the NDA regime between 2014 and 2019 March, there is 1.5 kilometers of road being built every single day. This is hard data which has been given by the ministry. Does that qualify as lal aankh for you? Let me also quote to you actually, because you said there's a difference between what the government does and what the army does. Now sir, here's what happens. The army is mobilized, the army can move to the border if it is made roads. If you speak to any veteran, they will famously tell you that some of the roads that were being used in Arunachal until very recently were made by the Chinese in 1962. You would be shocked to know that. Now let me tell you that according to Parliament documents, the central government has sanctioned 2,319 kilometers of roads to be built under the Arunachal Pradesh package of roads. Do you know that currently we have the Sela Tunnel project which is being made. Now the Sela Tunnel project will enable our troops to move closest to the border, that is the LAC. This is what the government does so that the army can move and it can fight. That's the government lal aankh.
Padmaja, whatever you have stated is a very good data that we have given. We are very proud of that. But don't you think that the Manmohan Singh government or Rajiv Gandhi government has done anything for the country or anything for the border roads? We are from the northeast India, and I know how difficult the terrain is out there in Arunachal Pradesh. Even when Rajiv Gandhi declared Arunachal Pradesh as a state in 1986, we all know what happened out there in Arunachal Pradesh.
Sir, I just told you what is being done for the border roads in Arunachal. Now you're asking what is being done. I quoted to you what is being done. Let me repeat for your benefit. You have the Sela Tunnel project, which is in Arunachal Pradesh. You have got 35 works amounting to 14,032 crore rupees only in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Since we are today talking about Arunachal Pradesh, 14,000 crore rupees worth of works are being done only in Arunachal Pradesh. In the last 75 years, we could not get a greenfield airport in Arunachal Pradesh. 3 weeks ago, we have a greenfield airport being inaugurated there.
Padmaja, you are totally exaggerating the development works that is being done.
Sir, I am quoting to you government figures. What is the exaggeration? This is literally government data. A greenfield airport has been inaugurated. I'm not making it up.
I'll take just 20 seconds to explain. I'll just have 20 seconds.
Okay,
when we gained independence, when we got independence, India did not have the capacity to manufacture a nail. Today we are sending people to the Mars.
Sir, I am not even comparing. I am not even comparing. Forget it. All right. India became self-sufficient only 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I still am saying that when you say लाल आंख क्यों नहीं दिखा रहे हैं, I am telling you that लाल आंख does not mean that you go and slap somebody. It means that you match them capability for capability. That is what लाल आंख is.
No, debate, Padmaja, the debate you are twisting it in a different direction. Our question as an opposition party is, when the Prime Minister could lie in front of the all-party meeting, why is the Parliament in session and the government is shying away from a real discussion on the Chinese incursion?
Okay, Captain Alok Bansal, do you think that the government should have made a statement on the 10th itself? If this happened on the 9th and now we are being told 2 separate clashes happened, the 10th the nation should have known.
See, I'm not privy to what happened, but if the things happened, I think once they analyzed it, they should have made a statement. So I'm not in a position to comment on this issue. When did they come to know? Because a proper analysis is essential before a report is disseminated to the public at large and to the countrymen. Because a thorough analysis is essential so that the correct information is given. And these are areas from where the information takes time to disseminate. These are border areas. I think it must have come to higher formations. Higher formations must have passed it on.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where the government had to make a statement. And I'm sure government would probably at some stage make a statement in the parliament, because parliament is in session. They'll probably brief the parliament as to what all has happened.
And as far as even Galwan clash is concerned, the Galwan clash is concerned, the government did have an all-party meeting, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary. There was an all-party meeting held, everyone was called in for it, everyone was briefed about what is happening. Mr. Chaudhary.
Padmaja, you are privy to the entire events that led to that all-party meeting. You know, there was a tremendous pressure building up on the government, and the government had eventually had to call the all-party meeting. You are very much privy to this. And what I told earlier also, the Prime Minister lying on that all-party meeting that there was no incursion in Galwan. Now, when you come to the question of the Lal Arc, you know that very next the Honorable Prime Minister comes on television and says that yesterday we had a surgical strike on Pakistan. So why this not attitude that we cannot show that on the case of China? What is the problem when we are doing a propaganda, when Pakistani intruders were attacked, when we had a surgical strike on Pakistan?
So just a second, are you saying that the surgical strike was propaganda? You don't really believe that it happened? You think that is propaganda?
I've never said that. I said the Prime Minister the very next day comes on national television and he makes a bombastic speech on the surgical strike. But on Chinese, why is he keeping so silent? Why, when the parliament in session, why there is
because
no statement from the
sensitivities are different? Or are you saying that there should be a surgical strike on China as well?
Why not? As an Indian, I can always ask. There are strategic interests in place.
And nobody makes any secret about it. Actually, in May this year itself, the Eastern Army Commander, General Kalita, said very clearly. He said that there is infrastructure, there is dual-use villages, dual-purpose villages, which are being set up by China on their side of the boundary. But we are doing the same. We also are building all-weather roads. We really need the Sela Tunnel. Colonel, we need more border roads to be made. We had the Army Chief, General Pandey, just 2-3 weeks ago, again when he was in Ladakh, say the same thing, that yes, there has been disengagement, but the situation remains very fluid. So where is the lack of understanding, General Meston, that when you make a statement about Pulwama or you make a statement about the surgical strikes, and when you're talking about China, the two have to be handled very differently, General Meston. And that same applies to the political class as well. The government has to make statements or handle the two very differently, General Meston.
Yeah, as a military man, I would not like to get entangled into a political debate, but nevertheless, I have my views, very strong views on this. The point being made about surgical strikes. See, in that case, we were the planners, we were the executioners, so we had the initiative on our side. Everything was deliberated upon, planned upon, and therefore we had the full laxity to announce it because it was from our side. Initiative was by us. In this case, the Chinese have taken some action, and therefore, now I will explain you the procedure. Why this delay? You know, anything happens, firstly, it's at a platoon or a company level when the contact is there. Immediately, the battalion commander who is located maybe somewhere else, he is informed. First, he will not blindly give a report to his higher headquarter, brigade headquarter. His first job is that he will verify, check, ask lot of questions, because whatever he reports thereafter becomes authority for the next step. Thereafter, once he is firm, he is very clear, he reports it to the brigade commander. Similarly, he asks lot of questions because staff and the commander, there are two channels working. The staff is questioning, the commander is questioning. Thereafter, once he is formed up and he understands what the situation is, because see, no one in the armed forces can ever give an incorrect report.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we have to backtrack on that report, you know, it was by mistake. In war or in such fluid situations, mistakes cannot be made. Therefore, everyone verifies, asks lot of questions, and after that it goes to the division, division to the corps, corps to the army commander, that is the Eastern Command. So this itself takes a lot of time because everyone, no one can, you know, it's not like a small thing, anyone will just give a call straight to the Prime Minister of India, sir, something has happened. Yes, they may apprise something is on, but we will come back to you what exactly has happened.
Okay, does the sequence of events now explain, Anirban Banerjee, why a statement has been made today? General Meston has explained exactly what the chain of communication was. So it's not as if somebody WhatsApps from Tawang and says, sir, ye ho gaya. There's a chain of command. Anirban Banerjee.
See, it has become almost our destiny that the propaganda GBs running the government of India right now will commit blunder after blunder after blunder as far as the diplomatic relations with the foreign countries are concerned, and our soldiers will have to pay the heavy price over and over and over again. And then there will be some people, RSS BJP people mostly, will come on media and do what not to defend those blunderous decisions of the propaganda GBs. We know that this is the destiny of our country right now.
It's very strange that you say that the diplomatic blunders are being done by the government when you keep telling the government every day, go show lal aankh to China, because that would be the best form of diplomacy. People who sit there and say, why aren't you being more aggressive towards China? Why are you going and even talking to Xi Jinping? Why do you extend him the basic courtesies? Why don't you embarrass China at G20? Today are saying India is diplomatically a failure. Anirban Banerjee.
Who had made these hyperbolic statements in the first place? Was it Mr. Nehru, or was it Mrs. Indira Gandhi, or was it Mamata Banerjee?
But sir, that actually depends on what your idea of lal aankh is. While it seems like a great punchline, nobody actually explains. When we sit on television or when we make comments about how India should show red eyes to China, perhaps in the realistic world, or in the realistic terms, when the BRO, the Border Roads Organization, says that 2,089 kilometers of roads have been made along the LAC in just the last 5 years. Just the last 5 years, over 2,000 kilometers of roads have been made along the line of actual control. That in the real world is lal aankh. I'm going to leave it at that because this is still a sensitive situation. We are going to hear more details of what actually happened, and tomorrow in Parliament also the issue will be taken up. For the time being though, thanks very much gentlemen for joining me. Today the BJP government took charge in Gujarat after a historic mandate, both in terms of seat share and vote share. The Saffron Party's blockbuster poll show in Gujarat is being seen as a precursor to what lies ahead in 2024. The overwhelming support for Prime Minister's image and BJP's development politics versus an opposition that is still looking for a foolproof success formula. And the seeming lack of a winning strategy seems to be prompting the leaders from opposition parties to react sharply to the assembly poll outcomes, discrediting the BJP and, of course, the PM. In the most direct and most objectionable of all attacks, a senior Congress leader in Madhya Pradesh, Raja Pateria, goaded his audience to do the hatya of Prime Minister. His rationale for the call was that this is what will save the constitution.
कि मोदी इलेक्शन खत्म कर देगा, मोदी धर्म जाति भाषा के आधार पर बांट देगा, दलितों को, वनवासी आदिवासियों को और अल्पसंख्यकों का भावी जीवन खतरे में है। संविधान यदि बचाना है तो मोदी की हत्या करने के लिए तत्पर रहो, हत्या इंडा कराने का काम
has been filed against Raja Pateria for hate speech and promoting enmity. It was followed by a half-hearted apology from the leader. In a statement, he said that his comments were misquoted and should not be seen in the wrong light. However, while Pateria resorted to threats, senior leader Pawan Khera came up with another explanation, saying that in Gujarat, Ichchadari votes were behind the BJP's win.
ये नया मॉडल आ रहा है, इच्छाधारी वोट। साहेब ने इच्छा कर ली, वोट पड़ गए। लोगों की जरूरत नहीं है, मशीनों की जरूरत नहीं है, वोटर की जरूरत नहीं है। जो चुनाव मुक्त भारत हो रहा है, लोकतंत्र मुक्त भारत हो रहा है, इस विषय में हर और आपको गंभीरता से आवाज उठानी होगी।
It's not just that the Congress that is trying hard to explain away the mind-boggling momentum of the Modi juggernaut. DMK mouthpiece Muruswamy today discredited the BJP's claims that their victory in Gujarat was a validation of the party's development plank and proof that it resonated among the electorate. The publication said that it was freebies and communal ideology that helped the BJP lure voters and not the benefits accrued by the centre's schemes. A criticism that the BJP has called a case of sour grapes for an opposition that is in denial and incapable of accepting the writing on the wall.
That the Gujaratis have voted in favor of BJP in a massive way, massive support. Even when Mr. Modi was not a chief minister, they have voted for this. Why are they not able to simply digest this basic fact? They want to give excuses for winning. There are no second thoughts on that. It is just because they have been part of UPA 1, UPA 2. I think, does that stop them from using their reasoning power? There. Illogical, I would call this.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Aparajita Sarangi, MP and national spokesperson of the BJP with us, along with Salem Dharanidharan, spokesperson of the DMK, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress. Mr. Dharanidharan, I want to start with you. When clearly every evidence points to the fact that the BJP has swept tribal areas, won OBC seats, won reserved seats, even bettered its performance in Muslim-dominated seats and rural Gujarat, doesn't it seem churlish to disregard all of that and say, oh, it is only about polarization? You muted, sir.
In power.
Yes, go on.
BJP has been in power in Gujarat for more than 30 years. They won 7 terms. But let's compare where they stand. Right? Graduate enrollment ratio in Tamil Nadu is 52%. Gujarat is 20-odd%. We have 4 doctors per 1,000 population. Gujarat has 1 doctor per 1,000 population. We have 80% girls in high school, but Gujarat has 45% girls in high school, half of Tamil Nadu, right? We spend 3 times the amount than Gujarat on PDS. We have lowest food inflation in India, where Gujarat has the highest food inflation in India. Similarly, we have the same per capita GDP as Gujarat in Tamil Nadu, but we have 4 times lower poverty rate. For example, the poverty rate in Tamil Nadu is 4%, in Gujarat is 16%. And another example, let's quote.
But sir, this is not about the performance of governments. The very narrow argument here is, why does the BJP win? The BJP says, because our schemes are beneficiary, people vote for us. You say, oh, it's just about polarization and reveries. Explain how you arrived at that conclusion.
I clearly said, when Tamil Nadu has done 4 times better, when the state has been in the BJP for the last 3 decades, but still their performance do not even match to 30% of what Tamil Nadu has achieved, and still voting for it. The Murbi Bridge crisis, in the same place, the same MLA was re-elected. How is it possible? Like,
why do you think that happened? So not only did the BJP win in Morbi, it also won all the seats where the Patidar agitation had taken place. It won all the seats. In fact, it won the seat in Naroda. It won the seat in Godhra. Why do you think that happened?
That's what I already said. It's because of religious polarization and fake promises. In fact, the Honorable Home Minister always been saying, no, Revdi is wrong. But still, the most worst form of freebie, that is to offer two-wheelers, that was written in the BJP's manifesto.
So, sir, if you're saying that it's because of polarization and false promises, either the voters in these 3 seats are communal or they are stupid.
See, I do not want to comment on voters, but also want to add on, there was this Lokniti CSDS survey, which says 53% of those surveyed in Gujarat has agreed that corruption has increased. More than 50% has agreed that price has raised. More than 71% has agreed that unemployment has raised.
So, sir, since you're talking about surveys, let me actually show you why just talk about Gujarat. The BJP's formula has evolved since 2014. In 2014, in the rural constituencies, the BJP in 2009 only had a 16.5% seat share. In 2014, it got 57.4% of the rural seats, and in 2019 Lok Sabha election, the BJP won 74% of rural seats. So the poorest seats, where there is most agrarian distress, 3/4 of those seats nationally, not just in Gujarat, not just in one state, nationally 75% of those seats go to the BJP. What explains that, Mr. Dharnidharan?
No, I'll give 2 explanations. The first, BJP has electoral bonds, which is it's a legalized form of corruption, has gotten more money than any other political party put together. In Gujarat,
sir, however much money you may spend, at the end of the day, why is the voter voting? Is the voter voting because they are taken in by a splashy ad campaign, or because they are communal, or they're taken in by false promises? There has to be a reason that in 10 years, from 17% rural seats, the BJP goes to 75%.
Yeah, that's what I want to complete. Let me complete.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. 80% electoral bonds went to Gujarat, so they made the election from 1 people, 1 vote to 1 rupee, 1 vote. That's one problem. And second issue is, if you look at most states, except Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh, big states, they haven't won. In Maharashtra, the MLAs were bought. In Karnataka, the MLAs were bought.
Actually, sir, they have the largest number of MLAs in Maharashtra as well.
And again, if you look at Tamil Nadu, they are less than 5%, Kerala less than 12%, Telangana no presence, Andhra Pradesh no presence, and again West Bengal, you know how badly they lost. So in most major states they have lost. And also, let me tell you, in municipal elections in Tamil Nadu in 2022 March, DMK got more than 60% vote share. I don't know why the media was not speaking about the excellent performance of the Dravidian model government. That is
so we spoke about your excellent performance when you won that election. So either it is about false promises which mislead the voters, Aparajita Sarangi, or ultimately it comes down to money power. The fact is you've got electoral bonds, moolah with you, and you managed to influence the voters.
And also polarize people. Polarizing people has been the trend.
Polarize people. So are you saying that barring Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Telangana, the rest of the country is communal?
I am saying you just want 2 major states,
or West Bengal.
Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat.
So basically any state that votes for BJP is communal, the rest are secular.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying you can divide the vote based on polarization, and that's what they've succeeded. And
Aparajita Sarangi.
And you're also failing. I can see it out of 3 elections.
Or maybe people just like them. Mr. Dharnidharan, with the greatest of respect,
very good evening.
Maybe people just like the BJP and want to vote for them. Because you've gone from blaming it on electoral bonds to polarization to false promises, but you haven't acknowledged the one factor that may be working. For example, let me tell you this. Hold on a second. Earlier, the BJP was called the upper caste party, which basically is anti-Dalit. That's what was held against the RSS. Let me actually tell you how over time, among OBCs and Dalits, you have the BJP stock consistently rising, and this is hard data. How? You have OBCs and scheduled castes accounting for as many as 57.5% of the BJP's Lok Sabha candidates for UP seats in the elections. 52.8% of their candidates in the 2017 assembly polls were actually OBCs and scheduled castes. So the BJP is polarizing, it's anti-Dalit, but do you know that more than half of the candidates that they chose in Uttar Pradesh were either OBCs or Dalits? Maybe that's why people are voting for them in villages and among the backward castes.
Yeah, I think you can try to play around with people maybe once or twice, but not always. And I think the future will say the truth. Maybe we have 2024 elections that will definitely tell the truth to people. But I'm asking the question, why is the performance so bad compared to Tamil Nadu when you have the same per capita GDP and the same GDP for the state?
Okay.
Why is it that your...
Sir, again, this is not about the performance of the states, but the valid question is that if you got such a magic formula and everyone across the country seems to love you, why can you never crack? For example, if Dalits are finding representation in BJP and similarly voting for them in Uttar Pradesh, even Tamil Nadu has a large Dalit OBC population. They don't want you. Aprajita Sarangi, something doesn't add up. They want the DMK Congress.
Bharatiya Janata Party cornered 52.5% vote in Gujarat. And as far as Congress is concerned, it was at 41% in 2017. It came down to 27%. We are all aware of this. Now the fact is also there, which you just mentioned, Padmaja, that almost for 27 years, Congress kept on saying that the tribals, the minorities, that is the Muslims and the Christians were with them. But what happened to them? Across Gujarat, it was all Bhagwa this time. So all these categories of people everywhere actually gave a thumbs up to the governance model of Prime Minister Modi and his team in Gujarat. We must accept this. All these people who are whining, who are complaining, are actually blaming the chessboard because they do not know how to actually handle this entire thing which is happening around Prime Minister Modi.
The logic is, and the flaw in your model is that it doesn't work in Himachal, it doesn't work in Tamil Nadu, it doesn't work in Odisha, it doesn't work in Telangana, it doesn't work in Andhra Pradesh.
Don't forget that we are in 19 states, right? NDA states are 19 in number, and we are actually increasing this number with every passing day. And 2024 is just coming. Now 10 states would be going for elections in 2023, and you will see the results. All of us will see the results. So I think it is Seva, Sushashan and Garib Kalyan.
All right, since you're talking about that, it takes somehow time. At the end of the day, if we leave aside all of these arguments of polarization and poll bonds, at the end of the day, the voter, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, is just looking out for herself. She is thinking what benefits me. And literally, when you had direct benefit transfer, how? Between 2013-2014 and 2018-2019, direct benefit transfer into people's bank accounts went up by 29 times. In 2013, the DBT was 7,367 crores, and in 2018-19, the direct cash transfers were at 2.14 lakh crores. 29 times. So you had 29 times people saying, "Meri jeb mein paisa hai, main is aadmi ko vote dunga."
Oh, so what's the point that you are trying to
The point is that you can keep looking for excuses. The point is that the voter is saying, my caste politics, my religious politics is getting me zilch. If I just vote for people who are benefiting me, I will reap the benefits. That is the most mercenary point.
You are absolutely wrong. You are absolutely wrong, Padmaja.
Then why is the BJP winning?
Welfare state that India is a socialist democratic republic that we are. The 29 times that the DBT has increased that you are quoting right now started only because of the Aadhaar card. The UIDA started by Manmohan Singh's government. You cannot deny that. The rural employment scheme that UPA started, the Manrega scheme, was started
so if you started everything, why aren't you winning?
Benefited out of this.
If you started everything, why aren't you winning? It's as simple as that.
Which was also started by the Congress regime.
Sir, if you started everything, why aren't you winning?
No, the point, I'm coming to that point, Padmaja. The caste equation, the religious equation that you are driving out from your analysis of the Gujarat results are not so accurate. There are places in the tribal belt, out of the 29 seats in the tribal belt, scheduled tribe reserved category seats out there, you can find out, if you analyze the data, there has been a direct impact on the results because of the Aam Aadmi Party coming in as a what do you call this, an X factor in these elections. Regarding the other seats wherein the Muslim population voted for the Bharatiya Janata Party, as you may want to put it like this,
okay,
is not like this. The Muslim population voted in 2014 around 6 to 8%. It remained constant in 2019. Remained constant, maybe a.
So I'm just trying to understand: is the villain of the piece the Bharatiya Janata Party and their electoral bonds, or is the villain of the piece the Aam Aadmi Party, or polarization, or false promises?
It is a combination of all the things that you are coming in. Why I say this, the polarization that has been done in Gujarat after the 2002 till 2022 that we are seeing out here is confined only to the state of Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh right now. You see the Hindutva model that the Bharatiya Janata Party wanted to spell out in other states is waning slowly, and the Bharatiya Janata Party must be a worried lot.
Okay, I'm sure they will be, sir. They look very worried as they swore in all of their record-breaking number of MLAs today in Gandhinagar. That is exactly what a worried lot looks like. Thanks very much, though. It's still a very short road to the 2024 election. I'm sure that time will pass very quickly. Completely out of time, ma'am. Thanks very much, both gentlemen, Aparajita Sarangi, for joining me. Thanks for watching.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
Meta laid off 11,000 plus employees, Amazon 10,000, Twitter 3,700 प्लस, Snapchat 6,000. गाइस लिस्ट और भी लंबी है, और अगर एक हेडलाइन जो हर न्यूज़पेपर, हर न्यूज़ चैनल चला रहा है आजकल, दैट्स अबाउट लेऑफ्स अफेक्टिंग द बिग टेक इंडस्ट्री. बिग टेक कंपनीज आर इन बिग ट्रबल. एक टाइम था जब ये इंडस्ट्री फ्यूचर प्रूफ थी एंड जॉब सिक्योरिटी के लिए काफी जानी जाती थी, बट रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी के नाम पे भर के जॉब कट्स हो रहे हैं. सो क्या टेक का ड्रीम रन ओवर हो चुका है? व्हाट लाइज अहेड? लेट्स फाइंड आउट इन दिस वीडियो एंड आई एम सुमिता करीर.
You're watching the News Hour at 10.
Aam Aadmi Party announces that it will be contesting all 230 seats in Madhya Pradesh 2023 Assembly elections. Bombay High Court has granted bail to Maharashtra's former Home Minister Anil Deshmukh in a corruption case filed by the CBI, but then put the order on hold for 10 days as the CBI sought time to challenge it in the Supreme Court. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has chaired a meeting of senior leaders of Karnataka in the AICC offices for a discussion on upcoming assembly elections in the state. Samajwadi Party's Dimple Yadav took oath as a Lok Sabha MP after getting elected from Mainpuri parliamentary seat today. NIA and Punjab Police have recovered the RPG launcher used to attack Sarhali police station in Taran Taran. Russia-made RPG-22 was used. Cop Sikh Khalistan Liberation Force terrorist Lakhbir Singh Landa is behind the attack.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टाइम शायद अंकुर तनेजा और मैं मौजूद हूं टोयोटा की नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस के अनवेलमेंट पर. तो टोयोटा की फाइनली ये हाई क्रॉस देखने को मिल रही है जो कि हाइब्रिड अवतार में टोयोटा लेकर आई है. इनोवा का ही हाइब्रिड अवतार कह सकते हैं. बहुत से बदलाव लेकिन क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले इस नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस में देखने को मिलते हैं. तो क्या है वो चेंजेस इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिजाइन, इन टर्म्स ऑफ फीचर्स एंड ऑल्सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंजन ऑप्शंस, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस वीडियो में.
You're watching the News Hour at 10.
Amidst Maharashtra-Karnataka border row, Union Home Minister Amit Shah will be holding a meeting on the matter on 14th of December. YSRTP chief YS Sharmila has been discharged from hospital in Hyderabad. She had been admitted after being on a hunger strike against the KCR government for stopping her Padyatra. Delhi High Court has issued a notice in a fresh plea seeking drafting of the Uniform Civil Code to secure justice and dignity of women. A special CBI court in Kolkata has extended judicial custody of former West Bengal Cabinet Minister Partha Chatterjee till the December 22nd. Chatterjee is being probed in connection with SSC teachers recruitment scam. A Delhi court has granted interim bail of 1 week to Umar Khalid for attending his sister's wedding. He is an accused in the larger conspiracy of Delhi riots of 2020.
हाल ही में हमने उबर का एक इवेंट अटेंड किया था जहां पर हमें बातचीत करने का मौका मिला सूरज नायर से, जो कि है सेफ्टी ऑपरेशंस के हेड एट उबर इंडिया एज वेल एज साउथ एशिया। हमने पूछे उनसे कई सवाल, आइए देखते हैं इस वीडियो में।
I think I really can't comment on public transportation in general, but what I would definitely want to say is that we as a platform are trying to be as safe for women riders as possible. In fact, very recently we hit the milestone of training more than 100,000 drivers on the platform for gender sensitization. In fact, as the number stands right now, we have trained more than 130,000 drivers on the platform, especially on gender sensitization. So, I mean, we from time to time obviously work on such initiatives which are industry first, which make sure that women experience a safe ride on the platform. I think we definitely want to encourage more and more women drivers on the platform. In fact, in the US, we recently launched a product called Women Rider Preferred, wherein our women drivers will get the option to be paired only with women riders. And that's something which we believe is going to be very empowering for our women drivers to feel safe on the platform, especially if they're taking, let's say, nighttime trips, etc. So that's something which we are evaluating for our market, and which we would definitely want to see if we can launch it here for India. And yeah, we are partnering with multiple organizations to get more and more women drivers on the platform, and something which we constantly endeavor towards. Yeah, gender sensitization is not just about drivers being sensitized towards women riders, but it's also about sensitizing drivers against sensitizing our drivers for all genders. So that is something which we will definitely work towards and get done. It's a very interesting idea and something which we have ourselves discussed and deliberated quite a lot. I think the challenge here would be to have a service which is very reliable, because the last thing that you would want is someone trying to book a pink cab but then not having vehicles available, right? So that's going to be a challenge that we are going to solve. Again, it's not an easy challenge because the number of women drivers is on the platform really low, and in general also commercial women drivers, the numbers are fairly low. So it's going to be challenging for us to do that at this point. But what we are doing is that we are partnering with organizations, NGOs, to increase the participation of women in the commercial driving space. And once we feel that we have critical mass, we can definitely think of launching something like that.
थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो। कोई सवाल अगर आपका इनमें से आपको पूछने का दिल था और हमने जवाब दे दिया तो लिख के बताइए। कोई सवाल जो आपका है और आपको लगता है हम जवाब दे सकते हैं तो उस सवाल को भी कमेंट बॉक्स में लिखिए। बाकी ऐसे और वीडियोस देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब टू गैजेट टाइम्स।
जिस उम्र में उन्हें स्टिक पकड़ना चाहिए उसी उम्र में हमारी दादी माँ किताबें पढ़ती है।
आजीबाईच्या शाळेमध्ये आल्यापासून माझं आयुष्य बदलूनच गेलं आणि मला खूप आनंद वाटायला लागला. मलाच नाही तर सगळ्या आज्यांना आनंद वाटायला लागला.
मेरा नाम योगेंद्र शांताराम बांगर है और मैं प्राइमरी टीचर का काम करता हूँ. यह जो आजीबाई शाला जो है यह स्कूल.
Here's a look at other stories that made headlines. Samajwadi Party's Dimple Yadav today took oath as Lok Sabha MP after getting elected from Mainpuri parliamentary seat in the recently conducted by-polls. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has called a meeting of senior leaders of Karnataka today at the AICC offices for a discussion on upcoming assembly elections in Karnataka. A day after long lines at immigration and security led to chaos at Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport.
Meta laid off 11,000 plus employees, Amazon 10,000, Twitter 3,700 plus, Snapchat 6,000. Guys, list और भी लंबी है और अगर एक हेडलाइन जो हर न्यूज़पेपर, हर न्यूज़ चैनल चला रहा है आजकल, that's about layoffs affecting the big tech industry. Big tech companies are in big trouble. एक टाइम था जब ये इंडस्ट्री फ्यूचर प्रूफ थी एंड जॉब सिक्योरिटी के लिए काफी जानी जाती थी, बट रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी के नाम पे भर भर के जॉब कट्स हो रहे हैं. सो क्या टेक का ड्रीम रन ओवर हो चुका है? What lies ahead? Let's find out in this video and I'm Sumita Karir. बिग टेक का बिग रीसेट मोमेंट आ चुका है गाइस. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द बेसिक्स फर्स्ट. एक्सटेंट ऑफ लेऑफ्स की बात करें तो 2022 में मोर देन
नए उत्तर प्रदेश की क्षमता और असीमित अवसरों से सफलता की नई कहानी लिखें. यूपी ग्लोबल इन्वेस्टर्स समिट 10 से 12 फरवरी 2023. नए भारत के ग्रोथ इंजन उत्तर प्रदेश में निवेश करें.
सोच रहा हूँ एक गाड़ी ले लूं.
हाँ तो ले ले, पर छोटी लेना, सस्ती मिल जाएगी.
अच्छी गाड़ी लो, बड़ी गाड़ी लो. बड़ा सोचोगे तभी तो कुछ बड़ा होगा. क्यों भाई?
सच्चा दोस्त वही जो आपके बारे में सोचे. ऑटो लोन्स फ्रॉम IDBI बैंक. बैंक ऐसा, दोस्त जैसा.
अमृत काल में विकसित भारत के विराट संकल्प के साथ तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहा है भारत. आज विश्व भारत को एक वैश्विक लीडर के रूप में आशा और विश्वास के साथ देख रहा है. फिर वो चाहे पर्यावरण हो या अर्थव्यवस्था का प्रबंधन. घरेलू स्तर पर राष्ट्र सामाजिक और आर्थिक विकास के नए आयामों के साथ लगातार आगे बढ़ रहा है और विकास के इस अभियान को गतिशील बना रहा है. आपके द्वारा दिया हुआ आयकर, समय पर आपके द्वारा दिया हुआ एडवांस टैक्स देश के विकास में एक महत्वपूर्ण योगदान देता है. अपने एडवांस टैक्स की तीसरी किश्त 15 दिसंबर तक जमा करवा के आप भी देश के विकास में अहम योगदान दें. कंपनीज, कॉर्पोरेट्स, सैलरीड एम्प्लॉयज या फिर वो व्यक्ति और संस्थाएं जिनका TDS या TCS कटने के बाद भी कर देता 10,000 रूपए या उससे अधिक है, उनके लिए एडवांस टैक्स देना अनिवार्य है. अधिक जानकारी के लिए www.incometax.gov.in पर लॉग ऑन करें. प्रत्येक आयकरदाता एक राष्ट्र निर्माता.
अगले एक साल में हमारा प्रयत्न रहेगा कि G20 नए विचारों की परिकल्पना के लिए और सामूहिक एक्शन को गति देने के लिए एक ग्लोबल प्राइम मूवर की तरह काम करे.
G20 के नेतृत्व से अब भारत करेगा वसुधैव कुटुंबकम को साकार. इसके हैं कई पहलू, जैसे डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, लाइफ जैसी नई पहल, इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ, महिलाओं के नेतृत्व में विकास. G20 की बैठकें होंगी भारत के विभिन्न शहरों और राज्यों में, ताकि हमारी अद्भुत विविधता और समृद्ध परंपरा का मिले भरपूर अनुभव. लोकतंत्र की जननी भारत करेगा G20 की मेजबानी. तो आइए इसे बनाएं वैश्विक बदलाव की शुरुआत. वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, एक पृथ्वी, एक कुटुंब, एक भविष्य.
हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टाइम शायर का अंकुर तनेजा और मैं मौजूद हूं टोयोटा की नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस के अनवेलमेंट पर. तो टोयोटा की फाइनली ये हाई क्रॉस देखने को मिल रही है, जो कि हाइब्रिड अवतार में टोयोटा लेकर आई है। इनोवा का ही हाइब्रिड अवतार कह सकते हैं। बहुत से बदलाव, लेकिन क्रिस्टा के मुकाबले इस नई इनोवा हाई क्रॉस।
You know it's only a drill, and yet you train like it is the real thing. Because one day, at a second's notice, it will be. One day, you'll come together as an invincible team, and every second you save will be a life saved. The Indian Air Force is looking for an exceptional team, a team that is truly a cut above.
Join the Indian Air Force to be a cut above.
There is a way to open a world of opportunities with the most reputed companies of the world. The way 96% of our students secured placement last year, with top ranks and coveted accreditations to show for them. The MBA programs at the Amrita School of Business. Admissions have opened. Apply now.